Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOT, and joined as always by my guy Cody Saftic. You guys can follow him on Twitter at CJ Saftic, and we are here propping you up for UFC Vegas 28, headlined by a heavyweight fight between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Augusto Sakai. Why these guys are in the main event, no fucking clue, is what it is. We had 1 week off. I'm sure you guys missed us. Cody, what did you do with this week off that we had from the UFC to get right back into things?
Yeah, so I actually went on like a little road trip. I was like, when do you ever get the rare week off from UFC? And it wasn't just like UFC was off, but there was no Bellator, there was no PFL, there was quintessentially nothing going on. So yeah, I went to go visit my grandparents. They live like 5 hours from me, but
Nice.
yeah, no time like the present. So went down there, spent the weekend, pretty good. I know I shot a recap video, looked sketchy times. A lot of people thought I may have been kidnapped. Good news is, not kidnapped. So we come back to what, like you're saying, could be a dog shit card, but because there's that week off, you're excited again. You know, you're rejuvenated, you're pumped to get at it. So we get a whack ass heavyweight headliner, and we get a somewhat whack ass co-headliner. Couldn't be happier to be here, my friend. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited for Miguel Baeza and Santiago Ponzinibbio. That's going to be an amazing fight, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that fight as well. Just to remind you guys, I believe this is another early start time, 7 p.m. Eastern, main card start time. So I believe the prelims actually kick off at 4 p.m. Eastern. So don't be snoozing on this one either. This is the start of 4 straight weekends of UFC events, and they give us another weekend off on July 3rd. But we are back with a mega event with Conor and Poirier 3 kicking us off on July 10th for, I think, 7 straight weekends in a row. So we're in the thick of things right here. I'm very excited to at least have a card to break down with my guy Cody here. Do want to remind you guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and also Cody's channel is in the description below as well, so make sure you guys go visit his so you guys can catch his recaps and all the other phenomenal things that he's going to be doing over there on the YouTube channel. So please do support us, and that's the best way to do so. Just hit that like and hit that subscribe on both of our YouTube channels, and that's the best you guys can do for us. And obviously view us every Thursday evening 8 p.m. Eastern to catch us propping you up for every single UFC card. All right, let's not waste too much more time. Let's kick things off right in the lightweight division. We got the return of Claudio Puelles going up against Jordan Leavitt. In terms of odds, we're talking about minus 200 for Jordan Leavitt and plus 170 for Claudio Puelles. Minus 240 was actually the opener on Leavitt, so we've had some money come in on Claudio Puelles in this point in time, and I kind of understand it, right? I'm still a skeptic of the monkey god. I'm not totally sold on the monkey god, and a lot of people are. Like I'm during my or actually on the comment section of my podcast I posted earlier this week, everybody's like, "Oh, Jordan Leavitt's the lock of the night." I'm not sure what you're talking about picking Puelles to win, but I'm not sold on him. He seems very one-dimensional. His striking leaves a lot to be desired, and the one fight that I highly suggest everybody go back and watch is his fight against, I believe the guy's name is Izzy William from February of last year. So it was right before he actually hopped onto the Contender Series. And good God, he leaves a lot to be desired. Now, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? He's still young. He's 24, 25 years old, I believe it is. So he's still improving on a fight-to-fight basis. But you're going to have to need to improve a lot in terms of your striking, in terms of what we saw in that fight. And we just don't see him striking, right? Luke Flores on the Contender Series was willing to engage with him in the grappling, thinking that he could submit the monkey god, was not able to. And unfortunately, he gets submitted. And then in the next fight, we get that Matt Wyman fight where, you know, he slammed KO somebody. Fun, good KO, right? Good fight IQ in terms of framing on the head of Matt Wyman, especially when he's trying to slam him and try to knock his lights on. He is successful in doing so. But I'm not sold on this guy yet. Claudio Puelles, you know, I'm not the highest on either, but I think he has a decent enough striking game. He's I believe he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. The last I saw, he was a brown belt back in 2018. So you got to believe within the last 3 years, if he's been training consistently enough, he's probably notched that black belt as well. And he's also changed his training camp from wherever the frick he was. Now he's over there in Sadford MMA, and you got to believe that they're actually doing some good work with this guy. So if this fight does hit the ground, which I expect to do at a certain point in this fight, I do think that Puelles can be competitive enough to stay out of the submission game and possibly stay away from getting grapple fucked here. And then when this fight is on the feet, you got to believe that Puelles is going to be able to light him up there. Maybe not light him up to the way that Felipe Silva was able to light up Claudio Puelles way back, and then Puelles was able to pull off that comeback victory. But I still do think he's going to have a much wider striking advantage here than Jordan Leavitt's going to be able to. So the way that I see it going down, I think Puelles nullifies the grappling game and the jiu-jitsu game of Leavitt. I think he touches him up on the feet. I do think he has live to potentially finish him on the feet. I know it's been a while since we've actually seen him finish somebody. He was back in 2015 on the regional scene where he actually finished somebody via strikes, but cut the guy some slack. He's only 2-1 in the UFC, was on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America at 20 years old, makes it to the finals, and then gets knocked out by Martin Bravo. Now he's only 25 years old, 3 fights deep into the UFC. I still believe he has a lot to showcase for us. But in terms of his props, knockout is plus 677. I think that there's a little bit of value there. Even Puelles inside the distance, plus 345. But the ones that the two that I'm most intrigued by, Puelles by KO, plus 677, and then Puelles by decision, plus 450. Again, you want to notch a little bit of both of those. You're probably getting some good value regardless. Am I too harsh on the Monkey God? Do you like Jordan Leavitt here, or are you on the dog as well?
No, I actually don't mind the Monkey God Jordan Leavitt. I think that he's a work in progress. I think that there's still a lot to be desired, like you're saying, but he's going to be one of these Ryan Hall type guys where the striking doesn't look very good and the wrestling doesn't look very good, but eventually the scramble goes in his favor and he's able to lock something up. I mean, he's very opportunistic about his grappling. And listen, this is a guy that's athletic. He's got a good athletic frame. He's long. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, right? He's a jiu-jitsu guy. That's what he is at his base. But he starts fighting some amateur MMA, and he's undefeated out of Vegas. He's at a syndicate MMA, and you do see the improvements fight after fight after fight. I think he's developing very quickly. So again, Puelles is only 25 years old, and you got Leavitt's 26 years old. So they're still both very young, and I think he is making a lot of improvements. So I had initially seen him, he beat, like his second fight out, he beat Lucas Neufeld from Alberta, right? So that was a fight that was co-promoted with the guys from Fight Night in Alberta. That was the first time I saw him. Close fight, one-dimensional jiu-jitsu guy, still leaves something to be desired. But I see that the improvements that he's making fight to fight. Now you talk about the Izzy Williams fight, and I'm going to agree with you, right? It's like, he's still very green. He doesn't have a striking game. He's very uncomfortable striking. He doesn't like to get hit. He's not physically strong enough to muscle some of these takedowns to the ground, and his wrestling doesn't have the clean enough technique. So what do? You don't want to be betting on a guard puller. But think about, he fights that Izzy Williams fight, and like you're saying, I hear the narrative. Everybody's saying the exact same thing in the very next fight, LFA against Lavon Lewis. Lavon Lewis is the brother of Bavon Lewis, fought in the UFC, and he's also out of Greg Jackson's camp. Same talk, but Leavitt goes out there. He snatches up the neck. He picks up the victory. I thought he looked much improved. Still leaves something to be desired. Then he's on the Contender Series. Quick submission. Then he's in the Matt Wyman fight. Happens very quickly. But I'll just think that his confidence is building. He himself is getting better. Hasn't quite shown it. Puelles is just such an anomaly. Who knows, right? Because like you said, he's on the Ultimate Fighter. He's 20. He's fighting in the UFC. He's 22 and 23. Now he's fully been off for 2 full years, and he comes back as a 25-year-old. Anybody that leaves any sport as a 23-year-old, comes back as a 25-year-old, presumably is coming back as a better version of themselves. You're bigger, you're fuller, you're stronger, you're more confident, you're just a better athlete all around. So no doubt Puelles should have made improvements. But like you're saying, he's been at Stanford MMA for how long? For this camp? Because he's actually been in Peru for the last 2 years leading up to this fight. Has he made the improvements that Leavitt has? I don't know. I think this ends up shaking out as grappler versus grappler. Like you're saying, if Puelles can stuff the takedowns, keep the fight standing, maybe he has a slight striking advantage. That's his path to victory. For me, Leavitt has got to get this fight to the ground. And though Puelles is a primary grappler himself, I see a grappler versus grappler. So if we're attacking this from a prop perspective, I think, first of all, we look at this over 1.5, a minus 160. I like this for sure because you got Leavitt's never been knocked out. In fact, he's never been finished. He's undefeated as an amateur and as a pro. So again, the narrative that he's a bad striker and he could get knocked out, sure. But I think you're going to have to beat this guy a little bit. I think you're going to have to take this guy into later waters. I think it could be one of you like those third round props. Like It could be a late second round finish or a third round finish. But he's not getting cold cocked in the first round, especially from Puelles. Hasn't knocked a guy out in 5 years. Not known for striking to begin with. And you go back and you look at that Felipe Silva fight, and it's like, oh my God.
Good Lord.
It reminded me of the first day I went to striking. And I don't know why the coach did that to me. I have no idea why the coach did that to me. It was like a point. It was like, he'll either show up or he won't. But it was like, he beat the shit out of me. I had no idea what I was doing. It looked like the same thing, like he's lost in there. Now, that's a long time ago. It's a gut check. And he still wins the fight with a knee bar. But striking's not his primary thing. So is he knocking out Leavitt in the first? No. Is Leavitt knocking him out? No, I don't think so. We got two grapplers. If this fight hits the ground, I think both guys are savvy enough to stay out of harm's way and at least slow this thing down to at least that 1.5, a minus 160. Now, if it's going to just be two grapplers the entire time, we got a fight goes the distance at plus 140. And if you're of the Leavitt's camp and you think Leavitt gets the job done, I know he does show a lot of submissions, but he shows a lot of submissions over guys that are mostly strikers, and Matt Wyman landed on the back of his head after pulling guard. No idea what was going on there. But, yeah, you can, if you go Leavitt by decision, it's plus 280. So it's a huge price tag. I know you're attacking the Puelles inside the distance for big money. I would look at it personally on the Leavitt by decision for that big plus money 280. But the smart play here, regardless of who wins this, is that over 1.5. And I know not every book offers a 1.5, but that's why it's important to have a good book, right? 5 times readily available offers 1.5 for every fight. Because do I feel good about the 2.5? I mean, I'm going sprinkle small money on fight goes the distance. So I do personally, but now we're getting into greasy territory. The 1.5 feels very safe to me, but I'm not sure how your feelings are on that. Clearly not the same. You've got Puelles inside the distance, so we're a little bit off, but hopefully we bank around 1.5 regardless.
I do kind of agree with you that I do think that it's going to be a little bit longer of a fight. I don't think he's going to start him in the first round or anything like that. I do believe it's going to have to take some fighting. It's going to have to take some demoralizing of Jordan Leavitt before he's Puelles is able to go out there and get a striking game. Hopefully, we'll see how that happens. But I want to be on the side that eventually where Leavitt loses. I know he's going to lose in the next couple fights. I want to be on the right side, especially at plus money, and I believe that it's going to be Puelles. Go ahead.
So I did the same thing with Claudio Silva. Everybody knows I hate him. I hate him with a burning passion, right? And I would fade him in the early fights, even though they were favorable matchups for him, because I knew how bad he was. And as soon as he got a mediocre guy, I hit a couple nice tickets. Obviously, we got Court McGee the last time out, and before that, James Krause, right? So we got good tickets to get back in, right? I did the same thing with Tai Tuivasa. He first came in. I watched the tape. I was like, oh, this guy's not good. He's super athletic, but he is green, man. He is and he won those initial fights because again, he's fighting Cyril Asker. Like, how are you going to lose to Cyril Asker? But it's like you're so antsy because you see the tape and you're like, the hole's there to be exploited. It's whether this is the right guy. So Matt Wyman. It's like, oh, dude, maybe Matt Wyman's the guy. It's like, no, because it's Matt Wyman, right? He hasn't won a fight in almost 10 years at this point. His body's broken down. He's a aged veteran. Like, it just wasn't his go. So now you got Puelles. It's like, Jesus, Puelles, that guy? Like, again, I don't think so. I see where you're going with it. I see where you see the holes and leave it. But you would need a guy that's either a really good wrestler or a really good striker. The wrestler could stuff the takedowns and force him to stand, and Leavitt can't strike. The striker can just maul him standing. Claudio Puelles is none of those two things. He's not a wrestler nor a striker. He is also a grappler. Now, does he have a slight striking advantage? Yeah. Does he have a slight wrestling advantage? Could be. But are they enough to definitively say that's how he's going to get it done? We'll only know come Saturday. But I'll tell you what, if you do hit, it will be a tasty little dog play for sure.
Absolutely. I do think there are a ton of barking dogs on this card, so I can't wait to get through the rest of it and see who else you're actually on here too. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Youssef Zalal going up against Sean Woodson, minus 175 on Woodson and plus 155 on Youssef Zalal. This was a spot where I thought I would be taking the dog, but after I run the tape a little bit, I'm more impressed, more so with the Woodson side, but not so much to actually make a bet here. Obviously, last time around, we saw Zalal go out there and lose to Sung Woo Choi as a minus 245 favorite, but there were a ton of sharps that were on Choi in that fight, believing that he'd be able to keep the fight vertical, which he did, and then eventually go out there and outstrike Zalal with the superior Muay Thai technique. Now, I think that we have a similar situation here with just the difference being Woodson is more of a boxer than a Muay Thai specialist like Choi was, but I do think that he has good enough get-ups. Now, I say get-ups and not takedown defense because he has been taken down in his last 3 fights with not the most resistance, but the issue is guys are just not able to keep him down. Like Kyle Bochniak has accrued 5 minutes of control time against him in a 15-minute fight, but that was all up against the cage while he was struggling to get Woodson down, and Woodson's just dishing out the damage. So even though it says 5 minutes of control time for Kyle Bochniak, he was getting hit the entire time. I'm not sure if you could say that Woodson was getting absolutely controlled in those situations. So, Bochniak was struggling to get him down, and Woodson was able to dish out the damage in that fight. Again, all of the fights that Woodson gets taken down, and especially in those last 3 fights, he springs right back to his feet like a cat, right? He doesn't settle on the ground at all. Recently, I believe it was Paul Felder or Michael Bisping that was talking about on the commentary team. As soon as you get taken down, that's your best chance to get right back to your feet. Don't allow your opponent to settle on top. That's when you have to really start to work to dig your underhooks and get your butterfly hooks, whatever the hell it is, just to get back to your feet. And Woodson does a really good job in terms of getting right back to his feet and not letting his opponent settle on top, which is where I think is going to be very important for him here. Zalal is kind of like an all-around dude, right? Like when his striking is going, he reverts to the takedowns. And when the takedowns aren't going, then he's kind of fucked, right? Just like we saw in the Sung Woo Choi fight. And I think that's what's going to happen here against Woodson. He might complete a couple takedowns, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep him down. I think Woodson's superior boxing is going to be able to keep him on the outside. The dude's lanky as how a 6'2" for 145 pounds is absolutely insane. And he uses the range pretty well, again, with his superior boxing technique. I believe he had 50 or 60 plus amateur boxing fights before he had a crazy car accident or something like that derailed his boxing dreams. And he switched over to MMA. And I thought it was a pretty good switch for him, considering that he can still go out there there and uses boxing technique pretty well and pretty efficiently, like he's shown over his last several fights. Obviously, the Julian Rosa fight is the one that sticks out like a sore thumb, but Julian Rosa and Yusuf Zalal have two completely different styles of fighting, right? Rosa is a wily veteran. He stays in your face, puts the pressure on you, and it seemed like Woodson actually wilted under that pressure. I just don't expect that type of approach here from Zalal. So originally I wanted to pick Zalal, especially I thought that the line was too wide. Obviously, it's starting to come in now as people are starting to bet on Zalal. But when Woodson was up at that minus 260, minus 200-ish range, I thought it was a little bit too wide. I still agree that the line is too wide. I am still going to pick Woodson to win this fight, and I do think he wins by decision. Zalal is very durable. He can take a shot, very good submission defense as well. But I do think we see Woodson win this fight by decision plus 130. That's the line that I like. I might even take your approach here. Well, I guess the overs are pretty juiced. Over 1.5 minus 410. Over 2.5 minus 245. So fight goes to the decision minus 215 as well. But I'm going to be on the Woodson side here. Plus 130 on the decision prop for Woodson. I think he goes out there and outstrikes him for the majority of the 50 minutes, stuffs the takedowns, or even if he does get down, right back to his feet, and then gets Zalal working from distance again. So I'm on Woodson decision. How are you feeling about this fight?
Yeah, dude, I completely agree. And a lot of the time I like to bet fight goes the distance and then my guy to win the distance. So hopefully in a perfect world, my guy wins. He wins the decision. I cash 2 tickets. In a not so great world, my guy loses that decision. I still hit one of those tickets. But you're right. Way too juiced here, man. Minus 205 fight goes the distance, even though I think it does. It's 2-1. So if I'm going Sean Woodson, I'm going Sean Woodson by decision, which, like you said, plus 130, plus 135, that's the line you're looking at. Sean Woodson is a massive guy for the weight class, 6'2", 78-inch reach, but he's not big on finishes. And this is not just the UFC. Like, he's got the flying knee over Terrence McKinney. That was crazy. That was highlight reel. But quite literally, the majority of his regional show career, even before coming into the UFC, is a lot of decisions. This guy is big volume. He doesn't mind hitting you 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 times over the course of a fight, but not exactly loading up on any one big strike. Now, the knee, a knee to the face is the kind of thing that'll knock you out if it lands. So, something like that, it lands and knocks you out. But outside of that, it doesn't. To that extent, the Julian Rosa fight is not the perfect fight for him, right? It looks like it on paper, but realistically, Julian Rosa's kryptonite, 5 first-round knockout losses. But again, Woodson doesn't have that knockout ability. So even though he put it on him, Rosa bad in the first round, Rosa took those shots, as again, Woodson just doesn't have the finishing ability standing. The later the fight goes, it's like Rosa is one of these guys that matches you tit for tat. And that's when it comes down to volume. So when you look at Julian Rosa, throughout the course of his fights, if he's not getting knocked out, the guy easily racks up. He can go 100 significant strikes because he's a volume puncher. That kind of pace broke Woodson. That kind of pace caused him to fatigue by the third round, and taking him into those later rounds and putting him away, that was all new territory for him. But he's undefeated. He's only 28 years old. Losing, good thing for him, right? Because now you can go back to the drawing board and be like, you know what? I got tired. And I got sucked into a dogfight. What could I have done different? You got to reevaluate things a little bit different. So no doubt I still like Woodson. I think that, again, with his kind of frame and his height and his general reach at this weight class, he's going to be a tricky fighter for a lot of guys. I think he's going to make improvements. But Zalal, just like we were talking in the last fight, you're looking for guys to fade. Zalal was kind of like that for me when he came into the UFC. I picked Austin Lingo over him on the basis of, Lingo was headlining cards for LFA, and Zalal had quite literally lost 2 fights back. Right? Yeah. And he goes out there and he pulls the upset. He moves linearly, dart side to side, and shoots those takedowns. And it works against a guy like Austin Lingo. So I fade him again against Jordan Griffin, right? Fade him against Jordan Griffin. The takedowns don't work against Griffin, and it is a close fight, but he squeaks that one out. Now, I'm not stupid enough to get him over Pete Barrett, so at least I don't go 0-3 on this guy. But I'm waiting to fade him in that, what does he do well? He comes from a striking background. He's the Moroccan Devil. He does have, I think he has a flying knee knockout of his own in the regional show. There is that glimpses of flash. He's at Factory X Muay Thai, but he doesn't throw any volume. And you look at all these fights, right? The last fight was Soo Wo Choi, 15 minutes, he lands 23. The fight with Topuria, 15 minutes, he lands 17. The fight with Pete Barrett, where he just ragdolls Pete Barrett for 3 rounds, 53 significant strikes, 59 against Griffin, 31 against Lingo. It's always low output. And so he darts around a lot, but he doesn't engage a whole lot. And so these 3 fights with Lingo, Griffin, and Barrett, he's all of a sudden using his wrestling. Wrestling? I didn't know the guy could wrestle till he came to the UFC. So he's not a great wrestler at heart. And clearly he's not looking to strike at heart. And so the Topuria, that was great. We got Topuria, I think, at slight dog money on that one.
Yeah.
That was great. But Topuria is a very good fighter. The Suwo Choi fight, that was where we hit a nice dog play in Woo Choi. And the whole thought process behind that one is Choi's 6 feet tall. He's big for the weight class. 74-inch reach, 6 feet tall, big for the weight class. And yeah, he's getting taken down by Gavin Tucker and Movsar Evloev, but Zalal's not those guys. If he does not get this fight to the ground, he's going to be forced to stand with him. If he's forced to stand with this guy, who is a Korean Muay Thai champion, bronze medalist at the Worlds in amateur Muay Thai, 6 feet tall, huge guy for 145, not going to go good. Woodson is almost the same identical situation. If you don't take Woodson down, which I don't think he will, and even if he does take Woodson down, you nailed this yourself, Woodson probably just gets up. He's going to have to strike with him. And Woodson's going to go out there and land 100, and Zalal's going to go out there and land 40 or 50. So he'll get doubled up. It's going to look better for the refs. And am I worried that Woodson all of a sudden tires out again? No, because Rosa pushed a hectic pace. He engaged him every step of the way. He was hurt at one point and caused Woodson to get a little overzealous. But one, he's going to learn from that. Two, being at Glory MMA and Fitness with James Krause, definitely something they can work on. Three, he's still young. He's only 28. So I get Zalal's young himself and making improvements, but I think Woodson's got the higher upside. And the way these guys match up stylistically, it should be for Woodson. So he's more of a decision guy. I think he gets the decision. You've already nailed all that. Plus 130 for Woodson by decision. I'm in. Again, the fight goes the distance. I agree with that as well. And that would cover you on both sides. Zalal wins. I think he's winning a decision. But at 2-1, like not nearly as appealing, right?
I do think that I've seen a couple of people float out there the possibility that Zalal could potentially lock up a sub as well. It's at plus 700, which I don't think is too bad if you do believe that he could do that. I don't think so, but just because Rosa subbed him last time around, I don't expect Zalal to do the same, but it is still a path of victory that we've seen work against Sean Woodson in the past. All right, fair. Let's move on to the next fight here. We got a short notice replacement. Manon Fiorot going up against short notice replacement Tabitha Ricci, making her UFC debut, and I think a little bit too soon. We got minus 525 on the French woman and plus 415 on, I think her nickname is Baby Shark. I could be off on that, but apparently she's the main training partner of Mackenzie Dern over there in California. She's a Black House representative. It seems like she has some solid jiu-jitsu. Well, she is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in judo as well. And it seems just by watching her fight, she wants to get you to the ground. She's a buzzsaw when it comes to the striking realm, and I mean that in the most complimentary way as possible. Like she just moves forward and throws winging hooks just to close the distance, and then she drags her opponents to the ground. And luckily for her, her opponents have a combined record of 4-10. So yeah, she's more than successful in those fights, getting these women to the ground and then finishing them. She was a minus 1,700 favorite in her last 2 outings. That just lets you know the type of competition she was facing over there in LFA. Now, jumping on over to the UFC, she's running right into the Sharks, right? Manon Fiorot only coming into her second UFC fight, but it seems like she has a pretty bright future. I think that she could at least crack into the top 10 if she continues to progress the way that she is. But I think the main X factor in this fight is going to be the fact that we got Fiorot coming in at 5'7" or 5'6", and you got Tabitha Ricci at 5'1". Not to mention Tabitha Ricci coming up a weight class here on short notice, obviously not having the time to cut down, well, obviously, Fiorot is obviously a flyweight, so it would make no sense to actually go down to 115 pounds. But I think this is a little bit too quickly for Ricci to be jumping into the UFC. Again, the level of competition that she was facing on the regional scene, nowhere near what she's going to be fighting in the UFC. So yeah, she's going to be able to head and arm throw some of these chicks or inside trip some of these chicks on the LFA scene to pull off her submissions or pull off her ground and pound victories. But I think she's going to struggle in terms of the strength here with Manon Fiorot. I think Fiorot will be successful in keeping this fight on the feet, butchering her on the feet with her striking. She is a mean striker, just as we saw in her knockout victory over Victoria Leonardo last time around. And I think that this is a great fight for her to go out there and showcase that once again. If Tabitha Ricci is not successful in getting this fight to the ground, where we still have some question marks about Fiorot, she is showing improvements when we have seen her forced to grapple, but has she really grappled a black belt like Tabitha Ricci in the past? I just don't think so. So again, though, I do think that that Ricci will struggle with the strength here. I think she's going to struggle to get this fight to the ground. Those head and arm throws and stuff is not going to work on a girl this much bigger than her and this much stronger than her. And I think the short notice nature just does not work in her favor. I do like Fiorot here. We don't have many or props out. Obviously, the only one that really would be considering would be Fiorot to win inside the distance, minus 140. It's always nice to get plus money on these types of props. Unfortunately, we don't. Maybe when they release the KO prop, it's going to be around even money, plus 110. If anything, I think that has some decent value because I do think that we see Fiorot absolutely starch her on the feet and just butcher her. So I like Fiorot here. Are you giving Ricci any more chance than I am here?
Yeah, I think a little bit more, but not a whole lot. I just think, listen, very difficult spot. You nailed it. Who says, geez, I got a nice little prospect here. Undefeated, right? Looks good. BJJ black belt. Training partner of Mackenzie Dern. Out of a reputable camp like Black House in California. Got all the parts. BJJ black belt and judo black belt. Competing internationally. We got a nice little thing here, right? And she's competing for LFA. She's 115 pounds and she's doing extremely well. Why would you take that person, clearly on their way to the UFC anyways, and take a fight on 3 days' notice at 125 pounds? Like, that's like, so you either have a lot of confidence in your fighter, and I'm sure they do. I think they, just like we talked about, she's got skills everywhere. Judo black belt, BJJ black belt, striking's ever improving. She's trying to rack up some MMA experience. You know, little known fact is that she actually turns pro like 2013.
She was 17 or something.
Yeah, crazy. I think she's like 18 or 19. But regardless, it's like she turns pro 2013, wins 2 fights, and then strictly focuses on BJJ. I believe I saw her compete in 2017, but she was a purple belt. So I know there's this hard narrative of she's a black belt, and she is, but she just got her black belt not that long ago. But similar to Dern, it's like they're progressing very quick. They're very good at jiu-jitsu, right? So no doubt about it, she is a good BJJ black belt, but I think Fiorot should be able to defend some of the attacks at the very least, and it is a tough task to be taking somebody on 3 days' notice in any spot, UFC debut in any spot, up a weight class in any spot. These are all difficult. She's just adding more to her plate, so it's going to be difficult. But I will give her the benefit of the doubt. You know, Fiorot comes to the UFC, and you and I are both on her. But the narrative from the other side was we don't know enough about her ground game. So it looks decent in UAE Warriors. You know, she's getting takedowns. She looks very strong in the clinch. And her ground and pound, pretty nasty. All this from a karate fighter. So clearly she's adding all those skills and improving herself. But what happens if she's on her back? Like, what's she going to be like in a defensive position in these grappling exchanges? So people thought that Victoria Leonardo might be able to force those grappling exchanges and wasn't. Got booted in the head. That was the end of it. We were happy with that. Cool. But we still didn't learn what we wanted to learn about Fiorot. So at least this is a different spot here where it's like, if she does hit one of these judo trips, gets this fight to the ground, and then peels on her, if she takes her back, I'm not saying she rear naked chokes her, maybe she does, but if she just takes her back, is Fiorot the type of fighter that's going to be able to get out of a body triangle? She's the type of fighter that's going to be able to scramble back to her feet? She's the type of fighter, her cardio looks good, so even if she drops one of these early rounds, and then Ricci starts to get tired because she's on 3 days' notice against a larger woman, you know, I'm confident Fiorot takes over rounds 2 and 3, but it could be a little bit dicier than minus 500 would suggest to you. Minus 500, walk in the park. Ricci's a little bit more credible. So the angle that I'm looking to look at this one is, I think this fight, you're thinking maybe the inside the distance, I think could go the distance. The reason why I'm looking at that is, one, you've got Tabitha Ricci. She's never been finished. I know she is young in her career, but I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt, low-level competition, that she can take a punch, and I don't think she's getting submitted here. So she's just got to stay out of harm's way. The fact that she's in there in short notice, that's all worrisome, but again, I think that her camp would have only put her in this spot if they had faith in her. And jiu-jitsu is a defensive art. So even if she is getting hurt, if she can just force this thing to the ground, even if she has to pull guard, even if she has to just, you know, survive, I think she should be able to do it. Fiorot, meanwhile, she looks like the wrecking machine. She looks like the one that is going to go out there and finish opponents. But I go back to that Corinne Laframboise fight. Now, again, this is a fight that happened less than a year ago. Laframboise fought in TKO. Her grappling is half as good as Ricci's. And she's 10 seconds away from surviving after, you know, forcing some grappling exchanges and largely surviving the majority of the fight. But eventually Fiorot is over to overwhelm her. I think Ricci's at a much higher level. Her jiu-jitsu is way cleaner. If she can get Fiorot on top of her, she's going to take away time off the clock. Where she gets finished is if her judo is not good enough to force this thing to the ground and she stands at distance and just gets kicked all night, then we could have an issue. But I'm not looking to invest a ton in this one. As you mentioned, the props aren't really fully released for it yet. We only had a limited pint size. But I thought small action on that fight goes the distance at 155. And then that Fiorot by decision is plus 240. So again, that's I'm saying I think Fiorot is going to win, but I'm also showing my respect to Ricci, and that I think a lot of people are you know, at 5-1, that kind of feels disrespectful to me, though I do agree Fiorot should win. I had Fiorot over Marina Moroz. I know a lot of people disagree with that one as well, but
Me too.
I believe that this is someone who's making a lot of improvements. She's still she's not young. She's 31, right? So yeah. She's making those improvements because she's new to MMA, so to speak, but she's more refined in that she has a legitimate martial arts background that she's worked on for, you know, almost 2 decades. That's going to see the translation, but she's got to get going so far, because again, at 31, whereas Ricci's the complete opposite. Like, they both seemingly have 6-1 versus 5-0, but I really do think that Fiorot just has that experience. She has that size. She's already made the ring walk, fought in the UFC once. That's all advantageous, enough to earn her this decision. And fight goes the distance at plus 155. Fiorot by decision at plus 240. Those are the two angles I would be looking at. But again, this is not one that I'm looking to hammer a ton on, I don't think.
Shout out to our guy, George from Greece here. He's saying there's only two women that deserve to be minus 625 in the UFC, and they're not named Fiorot. She'll win, but there's no value betting wise, and I absolutely agree with him, right? Like, I think this line is a little bit too wide. I wouldn't be surprised if it busts the parlays, especially if this fight hits the ground, right? If we see Ricci pull on that black belt and Fiorot has nothing off her back, then people who with, just aimlessly parlaying Fiorot here are going to be very furious.
That was actually pretty good. I know it sounds like that. What is this guy doing? That was cheeky. That was really good. I respect that.
I tried.
Yeah, that was good.
Right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Alan Patrick going up against Mason Jones. You want to talk about chalk? That's exactly what my guy Mason Jones is bringing here. We got minus 275 on the Welsh Mason Jones and plus 235 on Alan Patrick, who seems to be trying to make a career resurgence by changing his training camp over there to Sanford MMA as well. I believe he's training at Orlando MMA, BJJ or something like that. I haven't seen anything from him at Fusion XL, which is where he spent the majority of his UFC career. But now he's over there at Sanford MMA trying to refine that striking, because that seems to be the weakest part of his game. It makes no bones about it in terms of what he wants to do. He wants to get this fight to the ground. Like, his striking is pretty much predicated on him closing the distance, latching his arms around you, and then dragging you to the ground. And if it doesn't work that way, more than likely he goes out there and gets outstruck. And Mason Jones, man, talk about a debut. Even in a loss, you talk about a guy that raises his stock, especially against a high caliber opponent like Mike Davis. Both guys had plenty of success in that fight, rocking, hurting, and dropping each other numerous times. Obviously, Mike Davis comes out on the winning end, but we see some great things from Mason Jones. Decent takedown defense, decent get up ability. I believe he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu as well, has some heavy power in his hands. He came over from Cage Warriors as the double champ, but I don't rate it too heavily because he never defended either of them. He just won one title. They push him up to the next one. Yeah, exactly. He's the Conor of Cage Warriors pretty much, and even though Conor fought over there and Cage Warriors. But I like what I see from Mason Jones. I think he has a solid future in the UFC, especially with the way that he fights, especially with how entertaining he fights too. I think Patrick is going to struggle to get him to the ground, and even if he does get him to the ground, I think he's going to struggle to keep him there. And as long as this fight stays on the feet, you got to think that Mason Jones just puts some pressure on him, but lands big shots. I think this fight could potentially, end inside the distance as well. I actually like Mason Jones to win inside the distance here, probably even by KO. Jones by KO is plus 100. I doubt we see Jones sub him, but that's actually plus 1,700, which I think is kind of disrespectful for a guy who has a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And Alan Patrick seems to have a sketchy gas tank. If he goes out there and absolutely gasses himself out by, end of round 2, early round 3, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mason Jones slap something onto him and cash a plus 1,700 ticket. But I do think it's going to come down from either ground and pound or a standing knockout finish. I do think Jones finishes him here. We got the over-under at 2.5. I'd like the under 2.5 at minus 115. I really like Jones in this spot. I think the line is slightly wide, but I do think it's justified to a certain extent. So I do like Jones here. I do like him to get the finish as well. So like I said, Jones by KO plus 100, under 2.5, minus 115. And this last thing I'll say, possible round 3 prop here. Again, Patrick, bad cardio, could start to slow down, and it seems like the public is already on it because it's only at plus 850. Usually we get 4 digits here for those prop. It's not bad. It's not bad. But I do like Jones to get the late finish here. So how are you seeing this one?
Yeah, dude, I agree. And you know me. You know me best. I love my decisions. But I don't think this thing's going the distance, my friend. Nah. Listen, Alan Patrick is so one-dimensional in what he does, and unfortunately, he's not Russian, so he can't get away with the game plan of just mauling guys to the ground forever. Because as he progressed through the ranks, that game plan stopped working, and when that game plan stopped working, he has no plan B. Remember when he'd show up to the weigh-ins and do a standing backflip and would just shred it up and be like, oh my God, capoeira background, and he'd go out there and just land these takedowns. But that's been his career. So you look at the whole string of wins, right? He beats Garrett Whiteley, who he did finish, but he takes down. But the John McDessie fight, he gets outstruck 61-40, but he got the 2 takedowns. The Merabak Taysumov fight, he can't take down Taysumov, so he gets knocked out. But then Damian Brown, 5 takedowns. And he only lands 25 strikes over the course of the fight. There's no striking. There's no ground and pound. 5 takedowns. Stevie Ray, 5 takedowns. Damir Hadzovic, 9 takedowns. Now again, Stevie Ray, he lands 7 takedowns, or 7 significant strikes, over 15 minutes. 5 takedowns, 7 significant strikes. Okay. Damir Hadzovic, 9 takedowns, 28 significant strikes. So that's my issue with him, is that when he was taking those guys down, that's how he was winning. Now, when he ran into Scott Holtzman's not what you would consider an elite wrestler. Can he wrestle? Sure. And he trains out of the MMA lab, so he's worked with a lot of wrestlers. Him just quite simply keeping that fight standing. You see Alan Patrick get extremely desperate. You see Alan Patrick, all of a sudden, the fight he's taking damage. And then by the third round, that's that third round prop, he gets plowed away with the elbow. Now, the fight with Bobby Green, it's the same thing. Bobby Green is not what you would consider a great wrestler at all, but he can wrestle. And certainly, he's got a funky style and is difficult to take down. When he's not able to take down Bobby Green, he's just getting mauled up by Bobby Green. Now, the difference there is Bobby Green hasn't finished a sandwich since 2013. And in fact, the sandwich he finished, James Krause, he might have kicked him in the balls twice. It's debatable. You can watch it if you want. It's debatable. Bobby Green doesn't finish him, sure. But now you're running into Mason Jones. We're back into the Holtzman problem. In fact, you've got the Holtzman problem times 2. You got Mason Jones, who he's got a really good get-up game. He does have good wrestling. So even if Alan Patrick's able to get him to the ground, Jones is getting back up. Jones pushes the kind of pace, bigger than Holtzman, bigger than Bobby Green. He comes after you. Alan Patrick's gas tank shouldn't be able to match. And he's got some power. The 2 wins before he came into the UFC for Cage Warriors, he's knocking these guys out in the first round. The striking looks like it's improving. And he's still only in his early 20s at the time. Now that he's in the UFC, he's 26 years old. He's at Team Alpha Male. That fight with Mike Davis, my God. What a fight. What an excellent fight. This kid's 26 years old, making his UFC debut as an undefeated European champion, and he puts on a fight of that caliber. Huge. Loses. But again, I like when these undefeated young prospects lose the first time. Because when you see a guy with 7 or 8 losses, it's like, okay, either he's not getting it, or he's one of these guys that's like 36-12. Like, that's cool by me. You fight that many times, you're going to pick up losses. But for a young guy, 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, again, it goes back to the Tabitha Ricci and the Minero Fiorot and all these younger fighters. It's like, where can they get exploited? When you lose 7 times, we know how to exploit this fighter. In this case, it's like, where did he get exploited? Nothing other than experience. Just needed a little more experience. He's in there with a banger like Davis, who's already fought top guys in the UFC like Sodi Youssef in the Contender Series, came in, made a good name for himself, training with guys in Tiger Muay Thai. That's a high-level fight. Jones looked, and I did bet Jones. He was a sizable enough underdog. I was tempted in it. I really liked what I saw in the regional scene. He came up short, but still, a fight where you lose and your stock goes up. I'm in on that. Alan Patrick, the only thing I could think of, whereas this guy might fool me and come Saturday night, is like you said, he always at Sanford MMA now, and he's a great athlete, and maybe he's added some things. But here's where that's not a concern of mine. He's 37 years old, man. So when he was getting those takedowns back in the day, he's beating Garrett Whiteley, he's beating Damir Hadzovic, he's beating John Makdessi. He's still 32, 33. As an athlete, he's still kind of in that prime of his career. These later fights with Holtzman and Bobby Green, he's not as explosive. He's not all of a sudden going to become some great striker. And even if he went out there and his striking looked freaking on point, it was legit, it was good. He's not throwing anything more than 50-60, not landing anything more than 50-60. His gas tank won't keep up. And Jones is going to take his best shots, even if he has best shots, which I don't think he does. He'll take them, he'll walk through them, he'll break this guy down. So the Jones by TKO seems like the move, and it's plus 100. And the Jones by submission, even though it's certainly possible, 1,700, right? But the Jones inside the distance, minus 110. It's 10 points off from the TKO prop. So I'm not going to take the Jones by TKO. I'm going to take the Jones inside the distance, 10 points worse. Just because MMA is a crazy sport. And like you mentioned, crazier things have happened. He's a brown belt. He's at Team Alpha Male. If he gets Alan Patrick tired, if he gets Alan Patrick hurt, and if he gets Alan Patrick shooting a desperation takedown, he's going to Alpha Male guillotine this guy. So the possibility does exist, and for that reason, I'd rather just take the inside distance over the TKO. But I'm in agreement. So I got Mason Jones. He's going to be a top ticket parlay kind of guy for me this week. And I'm excited for his future going beyond this.
Yeah, I think he has a very bright future inside the UFC. Again, you don't often say that for somebody who loses in the UFC debut, but that guy's stock definitely rose in that fight, and hopefully it continues to rise with the W this weekend over Alan Patrick. All right, speaking about aging Brazilians, we got Francisco Trinaldo, 42 years old, young, or old young. Maybe let me reword that. 42 years young, Mr. Francisco Trinaldo now training at American Top Team, going up against Mr. Muslim Salikhov. In terms of odds, we got minus 240. 245 for Muslim Salikhov, plus 205 for Francisco Trinaldo. Not many props out for this one too, but there's only one prop that I need to see to actually make a little bit of a wager on this, and I like me some Francisco Trinaldo at plus 385 via decision, baby, because this fight, it's going to be a close one. This one's going to go to the judges' scorecards. Both guys are low volume, low output, and I have no idea why Salikhov is minus 245 the way that he is, right? I think it's that Russian tax. They see that Ov at the end of the name, like, oh, obviously he's going to win, right? Or against a 42-year-old Brazilian. This 42-year-old Brazilian's on a 3-fight winning streak over guys like Bobby Green. I believe, I'm trying to remember the last one, Jay Herbert, a fight that was very close. He got hurt and rocked in some of those exchanges as well. Comes back and shows off that legendary Brazilian power, knocking out Jay Herbert in the last round. I still think he has something in the tank. He's one of those ageless Brazilians that can still go out there and, land some big, heavy shots. He seems to have some decent durability. And again, the ability to keep fights close and the way that Salikhov fights, I think that this fight is mispriced massively. Like, I think that it's going to be both these guys just staring at each other, just throwing strikes every now and then whoever has the better moments is probably going to get the decision. But I'd rather be holding that plus 215 parlay or ticket on the underdog rather than the minus 245, minus 250 on the favorite here. Salikhov, when you actually watch his fights, like, yeah, he finished Nordine Taleb, and yeah, he finished Ricky Rainey. He got subbed by Alex Garcia. You know Alex Garcia as well as I do. Not really much of a submission threat, right? He's more of those like guys that kind of likes to wing for and throws big shots. So that was a big red flag to begin with. Goes out there as a minus 210 favor over Ricky Rainey, gets the job done. Finishes Nordine Taleb as well. But then his next two fights, very close fights. Laureano Staropoli, largely an inactive fight outside of that second round where Salikhov was able to hurt him and then lunge on him and possibly even got a 10-8 on certain cards there. But again, majority of that fight, they're just staring at each other, not really throwing much. The Alessio Zaleski dos Santos fight, he lost that fight. You can try to change my mind on that one. I thought Mr. Zaleski dos Santos definitely deserved to win that fight. Very close fight. Again, low output, both guys not really throwing much. I thought Zaleski deserved to win that fight. So once again, I think Salikhov just really fights super close to his opponent's level, no matter what. Unless he finishes them, it goes to a decision. Neither guy is throwing a lot of heat. Not a lot of guys are throwing a lot of volume. And in that case, I'm going to be going with the Trinaldo side of things. Again, the same guy that goes out there and just waits for his moments. Again, he's in a value cow Thai guy that used to train over there. Now he's changed his training camp over to ATT. And I don't think it's more so to improve his game. I think it's more so to just get better training partners, right? American Top Team has a plethora of guys for him to go out there and train with and try to upgrade his game just off of that, just getting experience and valuable time with other training partners rather than who he's been training with for the majority of his career. Let's go out there and just try to change it up a little bit and see if we can continue this 3-fight winning streak. So yeah, I think this fight's going to be close. I'd rather be on the underdog here in Francisco Trinaldo, plus 385, like I said, as the decision prop. I think both guys are hella durable. I think they're both going to be going to the 15-minute mark here. And again, I like Trinaldo here. I think he's going to land the better shots. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, so Francisco Trinaldo is 42 years old, and he has been fighting professionally for 16 years, and he has 32 professional fights, and motherfucking never been knocked out, Holmes. This guy has got one hell of a chin. You do not go out there and knock out Francisco Trinaldo. I think that's a hell of a stat. In that, how does Muslim Salikhov get his victories? He usually goes out there and relies on that power because he is a low output guy. I mean, he's only looking to land 40 significant strikes in there and hopefully hit you with a spinning back kick to the body that'll crumple you over. When he debuted in the UFC, dude, I got fooled. I got backdoored and I got my apple pie shit in big time. Because, yeah, you see him come Russian, last name O-V, and then I was like, why is his nickname King of Kung Fu? Red flag number one. I like my OV Russians wrestling and wrestling lots, And if they don't wrestle, then hopefully they're Sambo champions instead. Good enough. But like Kung Fu, that was red flag number one. Red flag number two. He left Russia to go train at Nova União. You don't do that. You leave Brazil to go to Russia, right? Go train your wrestling, not the other way around. It was like a huge, and then sure enough, Alex Garcia of all people. Alex Garcia is like a 2-1 underdog. Yeah. Goes out there, just takes him down at will, takes his back. That rear naked choke, he doesn't even try to fight the hands. He just accepts it. And you would know this, but Alex Garcia goes on to lose his next 4 fights and effectively retire. So yes, he was operating at a very low level to begin with. He's 1-5 in his last 6. That one win was Salikhov. Now, Muslim goes on a great little 4-fight winning streak. And I'll admit, he does look like he has made improvements. His hips look a lot stronger. His takedown defense probably has made improvements. However, who's taking him down? Ricky Rainey? What? No, not pretty Ricky, right? He's a striker. He's a primary striker, more of a Bellator caliber guy. We got Nordine Taleb, who is a striker. We've got Lariano Staropoli, we'll talk about later, who is effectively as striker as it gets. And we've got Elizu Zalescu dos Santos.
Nailed it.
Again, dude, he's a capoeira guy. Like, he's a striker. They're all strikers. All these men are strikers. What would happen if Muslim Salikhov was to fight a wrestler again? Or at least somebody that can mix in the wrestling. And that's where Trinaldo's interesting. The guy can strike, never been knocked out as I mentioned, has fancied himself a lot of good striking bouts with a lot of good guys. But he does have that X factor that he can mix in a couple takedowns here and there. He's taken down some good guys. He never wrestles, he never shoots 3, 4, 5 takedowns in a fight because that would be too taxing on his cardio. He's one of these 42. Everything he does is with purpose. You know, he's not throwing combinations just to field you out. Like, he throws big power because it's big power, try to clinch you up, try to take you down, right? 1 or 2 takedowns will do the trick. Power grappling from the top, conserve that energy. It all plays out to a close fight, a competitive fight, and a fight that probably goes the distance. And like you said, do I want a Muslim Salikhov ticket while I got a sweat going on? Or do I want a 385 by decision on Trinaldo while that sweat's going? That's what I feel pretty good to me as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to agree with a lot of his points. The last thing I want to mention with Muslim Salikhov as well, it's like, okay, well, he is making these improvements and he's getting a little bit better marginally and this and that and all that. Fair enough. So he's been off a year. Now he pulls out of that first fight with Claudio Silva. I don't know why he withdraws, but he withdraws. What's concerning is it was a free win over Claudio Silva. You could have 2 broken feet and still win the fight. But he pulls out, so something's wrong with him. So then he gets booked against Santiago Ponzinibbio. So they're not happy with him. They rebook him from Claudio Silva to Santiago Ponzinibbio. Like, what the hell is this? But they rebook him and he pulls out. And you see right on Tapology, Salikhov withdraws due to ongoing COVID-19 symptoms, right? So he gets COVID and then pulls out of a subsequent rebooked fight because of the lingering effects. The same thing that's happening to Chimaev. Chimaev's pulled out of a series of fights because of lingering effects. You go to training and you're like, holy shit, I can't breathe. So has he been training? Has he been wrestling hard in the gym? Has he been prepared properly? All shit that I would rather have a plus 385 Trinaldo by decision ticket instead. So again, I think the 2 ways of looking at it is the over 2.5 minus 160. I think it covers you either side. And then I think you take the Trinaldo by decision. Could Trinaldo sub him? Yeah, absolutely. Could Trinaldo knock him out? I don't think that's the move, but he could sub him if he got him to the ground, but I think he wins this decision. If Salikhov wins this fight, he's not subbing Trinaldo. And again, could he knock Trinaldo out? Might happen to Trinaldo eventually. But if you're going to tell me 16 years, 32 pro fights, a decade in the UFC, never happened, yeah, I don't think Salikhov's the first guy all of a sudden. So, yeah, I think this thing goes the over 2.5 on minus 160, and I'm going to have a feeler out Trinaldo by decision plus 385. I think we're on the same page, bud.
I don't even, I know this is a prop show, but there's no need to be greedy here. Just take Trinaldo plus 200.
Yeah,
I think that's even a great price as is, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry, but just the last thing, when you look at his little win streak, like you say, he's on a 3-fight win streak, he's going to ATT, okay? This is a good little narrative. Him versus Bobby Green, right? Which he should have fucking killed Bobby Green. He wins the fight. He's a minus 150. Then he gets booked against John Makdessi. This is a walkover for him. He's a minus 150 over John Makdessi.
Weird.
Then they give him Jay Herbert. Now, this is the easiest fight the man's had in his entire professional MMA career. And he's in even money. Or I think he's minus 110.
I think he's the underdog closing.
Because the narrative's always, while he's old and his gas tank might be a little sus, the narrative's always there, and they always give you a nice line on him. And this is no different. What you're getting is you're getting a nice line on him. Is exactly what you're getting.
Absolutely blasphemous of a line, and you're damn right. I'm taking full advantage of that this weekend. All right, let's move on to the next fight here because we got a plethora of fights to still get through. We got Tanner Boser going up against Ilir Latifi. Some chalk here on Tanner Boser coming in at minus 185. Some money obviously coming in on Ilir Latifi, who now sits at plus 160, but Boser did open up minus 255. People love some Canadian Boser, and they love that mullet. But once you actually start digging into this fight, you think it's a lot closer than that minus 260, minus 240 that he was currently, or that he was earlier on. The main thing that we've been seeing from Tanner Boser is just striking exchanges, right? Nobody really has pushed him in the grappling realm, at least in the UFC, or at least in his recent couple fights. The one that I really had to dig deep into to find where he's actually been challenged was Russia. Yeah, his fight against Denis Moldarov, where he gets taken down and he has a lot of trouble in terms of getting back to his feet. He can't really handle it. But that was over 4 or 5 years ago that he had to deal with that fight specifically, I should say. Can we 100% say that he's made improvements on that? No, we can't. Like, you can assume it, but until we see it in the cage, you can't be like, okay, he's going to stuff all the takedowns that Ilir Latifi is going to be throwing at him, because if that's not Ilir Latifi's game plan here, I don't know who the fuck's coaching him, because that's the way that you're going to beat Tanner Boser in this fight. You're not going to out-volume him. Boser has a really good chin. I'd be surprised if he knocked him out. And again, Boser very mobile, likes to use his leg kicks, likes to stay on the outside. And I think we'll see the same approach from him in this fight. It's just the threat of the grappling that gives me question marks here, because Latifi can be very successful with it. Just watch the Derek Lewis fight, right? He had a lot of success in that fight. It was just, he was just not able to hold him down long enough in that third round, because, we know Derek Lewis. He gets held down. It's like he's just trying to conserve his energy, just try to get a little bit more energy back. And then when he has enough, just fucking goes onto his belly, hand, knees, right back to his feet. And then exactly, then he fucking rains hell on his opponents, just like he did against Latifi at the end of that fight. And that Latifi loses that fight. But again, very close fight, because he's successful with his takedowns. And taking down Derek Lewis is, Derek Lewis doesn't have the greatest takedown defense, but that's a behemoth of a man, especially considering Latifi used to fight down at 205. But Latifi has settled in very nicely at fucking heavyweight, the weight that I believe he came in at like 240 or 250 for that fight. Huge human being, very thick guy, sledgehammer to a T. And I think he won't have much resistance in taking down Boser if he's able to close the distance sufficiently enough, get his hands around him, and then drag him to the ground. That's what's giving me pause here in terms of playing this fight at all. I don't like Latifi's gas tank either. I think he does start to gas later in fights, and I think that Boser has a really good gas tank. And I think that we see Boser learn from his mistakes in the Arlovsky fight, which was, he was a little bit not enough volume, right? Like we're used to seeing volume from Boser, staying active, leg kicks and punches, whatever the fuck it is. But he just allowed Arlovsky to have more moments in that fight, which is why he lost that fight. So I'm not ready to write off Boser immediately, right? A lot of people are going to write him off because he lost to a late, an Andre Arlovsky, but I'm not ready to do that. But again, I'm not ready to bet on him here either as a minus 185 favorite because of the question marks regarding the grappling here. However, I do see this fight going the full 15 minutes, and that's probably where my money would be if I bet on this fight at all. Minus 140 for the over 2.5, not too bad. And even Boser to win by decision, plus 190, not too bad. But on the flip side, you could do Latifi by decision as well, plus 365. I do think this sees the scorecards. Now it just depends on which style is more effective. Is it the striking, the stick and move style of Boser, or is it the grappling heavy approach that we're going to see from Ilir Latifi? I'm going to go with the Canadian, and that's not a Canadian bias. That's just me, watching the tape and thinking this is what's going to happen. But I would not be surprised if Latifi gets his hand raised with the grapple heavy approach. Which side are you leaning on more here?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. But remember how last fight you said don't get greedy. I think that's where my mind is here. Instead of trying to chase this Boser side or this Latifi side, I think you just take that fight goes the distance at minus 120, and it hopefully covers you both sides. I'll admit Boser should win on the basis that he's actually a heavyweight. Like he's a big guy, he's got a big frame for the weight class, and he's very mobile, good striking. Good striking in the sense that he's got good volume for a heavyweight. He likes the leg kicks. He likes to kick a lot. I believe he does come from a karate base, and you see it with that mobility and that ability to kick a lot. How he knocked out Felipe Lins and Rafael Pessoa, that's not really the kind of fighter he is. He is a heavyweight. They hit you, you're going to fall over. And in Lins and Pessoa's case, you hit them, they fall over. But again, he is more of a points type guy that's just going to chip away at you. And in the Arlovsky fight, Arlovsky is currently that as well. He is a points-based guy that chips away at you. And maybe Boser had too much respect for him. I don't know. I thought Boser won the fight, but it was way too close. Like it's what the judges are looking at. Boser's slight little leg kicks, or are they looking at Arlovsky's slight little hand combinations? And in the end, they gave it to Andre Arlovsky's slight hand combinations. But can this guy improve and get better? I do believe so. The question mark is, like you said, he fights on the Canadian regional scene and he fights almost no wrestlers, right? He now goes to Russia. He fights a couple wrestlers here and there. He loses the Vakahov fight. He loses the Denis Moldarov fight. It doesn't look like, wrestling. It looks like if he would have stayed in Russia for another 5 fights, he would have lost 4 of them probably with takedown defense issues. But now you come to the UFC. There's different heavyweights for you to fight. He makes a good name out of himself. He loses to Cyril Gane, no big deal. Picks up the victories, picks up some bonus money. Things are going well. Here's my issue. You take Tanner Boser, a mobile heavyweight with his striking background, and you put him, I hate to say it because I hate, like everyone says you don't have to jump gyms, But like if this guy was at ATT, if this guy was at, AKA, if this guy was at a gym where he'd be wrestling all the time and I knew for certain he'd be able to keep the fight standing, you'd feel a lot better about it. Instead, he works a full-time job and he's training in Edmonton. His chief training partner is KB Bular, who we've seen fight in the UFC 2 times now. He doesn't have these high-level wrestlers that are going to push him the way that somebody in the UFC eventually is going to. Now, in this spot against Latifi, Latifi's a small guy. Not only is he not really a heavyweight, well, he's definitely not a heavyweight, he's not really a 205er. Like, he's got the frame of a middleweight, but he's so jacked up. He fights at 205 and gets away with it, I guess. And at heavyweight, it's almost comical. Like, you see him at the weigh-ins and it's a joke. But again, what he is able to do is go out there and get takedowns. We know that he's a strong powerhouse type wrestler. He's scored multiple takedowns in the majority of his fights. And again, that's not the issue. It's that when he does get the fight to the ground, he's a little fire hydrant. It's hard to get him off you. It's such a low center of gravity. You'd have to really push this guy off. Now, Lewis is a huge guy, and when Lewis wants to get up, he gets up. As far as getting Gabe Gonzaga off you ain't no easy task, right? When Lewis decides it's time I want to stand up now, he just seemingly does. It's crazy. Even DC had to take him down a few times because Lewis would just stand back up. Like, he has the ability to do that, but I don't see that out of Tanner Boser. So if Latifi gets those same takedowns that he did against Lewis, he holds him down. But that Lewis fight, 15 minutes, earlier Latifi lands 5 significant strikes. So what it comes down to is who are the judges? Because we see this week in, week out. Some judges like wrestling. Some judges, they want something out of the wrestling. If Boser lands half a dozen kicks and a couple shots and then gets taken down and smothered and nothing happens, well, I don't know who wins the round, right? Again, it comes down to who the 3 judges are. Latifi's live as an underdog. Latifi at that kind of price as a decision play all does make sense to me. But man, he's 37. He's 5'10", and that's being generous. He's not a heavyweight. He has very questionable cardio. Yeah, it's all not looking good. The savior here is the dude went 15 minutes with Derek Lewis and took some shots, man. He took some shots against Derek Lewis. And it's like, well, he has been knocked out. It's like, okay, well, who? Volkan Oezdemir. No time. He's got tons of power, right? It's like, well, who else has knocked him out? It's like Ryan Bader. Dude, that knee right up the middle, come on. Who does that not knock out? And it's like, and he got body kicked by Jan Blachowicz, the current world champion. So it's like, I think I'm going to give him a pass, even though Boser's a heavyweight. Don't get me wrong. Boser's not Derek Lewis. Yeah. This guy took his best shots. At best, Boser wins the decision. At best, Latifi does take him down. Latifi wins the decision. So I'm going to have the decision. And if Carla Esparza would not have had that TKO over Jan, I would do the classic bet both sides. But my God, she ran right through her like a hot knife.
Who expected that, though?
Right through butter. Through butter. So maybe I have a little bit of reserve about betting both sides. But if you did bet both sides, in a theoretical world, you have Boser wins. On a $100 bet, you would win $90. And then if Latifi pulled the thing off, I mean, you're looking at like $285 profit, right? It would be nice either side. But again, sometimes you got to expect the unexpected, and that's what happened with Esparza, so I have to take a lesson out of it.
Yeah, no, I was very stunned that Carla Esparza was actually able to get the finish last week. I think that would have been a clean sweep for both of us if Carla Esparza actually got that decision there rather than the TKO victory. That was insane.
She killed her, man. She didn't just TKO her. It's like if they
I was happy she won.
If they fought 10 times, she would have won 10 times. Like, I don't see an argument against that. Like, even if she slipped, she would have just gotten up, taken her down, and smashed her.
Jeez Louise. That was insane. I was happy I was on the money line there at least, so that at least saved my night. All right, let's move on to the next one. Speaking of women, we have a flyweight scrap coming up here between Montana De La Rosa and the lack of violence queen, Ariane Lipski, who just does not seem to bring that heat over that she had over there in KSW. Absolutely falling flat on her face since coming to the UFC. Comes in as a minus 250 favorite against Joanne Calderwood in a debut, loses. Comes in as a minus 250 favorite against Molly McCann, loses. Beats Isabella De Padua, who takes the fight on less than 36 hours notice, probably even less than 24 hours notice, and has a fight on her hands, right? She wins the fight, but you see De Padua taking her down with relative ease. Obviously, De Padua fights, I believe, at a lower weight class, not to mention, she was not ready to fight. I think she was there to actually corner one of her teammates, and she ends up taking the fight on short notice. Good for Lipski. She gets to win there. next fight, she knee bars Luana Carolina, who I don't rank that highly either. And then she goes out there and loses to Antonina Nurmagomedov, apparently, because anybody that wants to go out there and take down Ariane Lipski, they're going to be able to. And what do we have here? Oh, Montana De La Rosa, former wrestler from high school. And I believe, if not, I'm not sure if she actually went to college for wrestling, but I believe she had a kid nice and early, right out of high school or something like that with
nice and early.
Nice and early, apparently.
Nice and early.
Yeah, I think that derails her wrestling career, but she still shows some good wrestling chops inside the UFC, especially when she's not dealing with girls that are like Viviane Araujo, who are able to stuff those takedowns and then absolutely butcher on the feet. But silver lining in that Viviane Araujo fight, the girl has great durability. She took her biggest shots and was still chugging forward. Her nose was leaking all over the place. She's still moving forward, showing off some decent striking of her own, getting her own shots off as well. But obviously Viviane Araujo, the much better fighter in that situation, she gets her hand raised. The Mayra Bueno Silva fight, we saw some good things from De La Rosa in that fight too, in terms of being able to secure takedowns even later in the fight, even after she's getting lit up on the feet. She's getting these fights to the ground and having success on top. Obviously that fight goes to a draw, if I'm not mistaken, but Bueno Silva actually got a point taken away in that fight as well. Ariane Lipski cannot defend a takedown for her life, it seems like, right? I believe on UFC stats, she has a 45% takedown defense rate. That's not going to cut it against a girl like Montana De La Rosa, who has great durability, great cardio, obviously now trained over there, I believe full-time up in Colorado at Team Elevation. Yeah, her takedowns are going to be there, and I believe if that's what she wants to do, she's going to be able to get this fight to the ground. Now, Lipski obviously changing training camps, going over there to the American Top Team, but I don't care how much she's drilling takedown defense at that camp. I don't think it's going to help her here, because I think that it's not going to take one training camp for you to completely shore up your takedown defense, especially when girls like Joanne Calderwood and Molly McCann are able to take you down with relative ease. I think Montana De La Rosa cruises here. I think she faces the least amount of resistance on this entire card. I think she takes on Lipski with ease. I don't think that Lipski is bringing half as much ferocity as she had from the KSW days. I don't know if she was on the sauce back there or what it was, but she's just not hurting people with the striking like she used to back in the day. And I think that whatever she's going to throw at De La Rosa is going to be able to eat. De La Rosa will walk through it, close the distance, and get this fight to the ground and grind her out. Now I'm stumped between the decision and submission prop here. Lipski has not been submitted in her career, if I'm not mistaken. I believe she has 8 losses on her career and hasn't been submitted one time. 6 losses on her career, hasn't been submitted one time. But Montana, even when she's on top, she's not a crazy lay-in prayer. Like if there is an opportunity for a submission, she will try to seek it, right? Whether it's the arm triangle or whatever it might be. If she gets the back, she's going to go for the rear naked choke. But I expect this fight for the majority of it play out on the ground. I ultimately have settled on the decision prop. I think De La Rosa will just play it safe as much as possible. Maintain that top position, absolutely pulverize Lipski from on top. And I just don't think that Lipski has the get-up game or the jiu-jitsu off of her back to threaten De La Rosa at all. So yeah, I really like De La Rosa here, if you can't tell. I'm going De La Rosa by decision at plus 115. I think that's a pretty good line. And if you do want to get crazy with it, for the hell of it, what is it? De La Rosa by submission, I believe is in the plus 300-ish range. De La Rosa plus 310. So I think it could happen either way, but I think the more likely outcome is the decision. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, okay, so again, I love me some decision props, but this one I don't feel comfortable with. I think De La Rosa would be live. Even like you said, you like these third-round finish props. Like, I think she's probably late for a finish the later this thing goes. When you look at Antonina Shevchenko is not exactly one to finish opponents. You go back in her Muay Thai career, mostly decisions. You look at her MMA career. I know she won on Contender Series by TKO due to knees to the clinch. The prior 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight decision victories prior to that Contender Series fight. The fight with Jinyan Kim decision. Lucy Pudilova, she got a rear naked choke in Lipski. She got the ground and pound. Like you said, Nurmagomedov, she's working on those ground skills. But that's operating at a really low level. Like the fact that she was able to TKO her, like I do have a problem with that. So now you got Montana De La Rosa. She's theoretically a better wrestler than Antonina Shevchenko. She's got better top game than Antonina Shevchenko. This girl, I believe she's only a brown belt. Her husband, Mark De La Rosa, is a BJJ black belt, but she's made a lot of improvements in the grappling. She's at Elevation Fight Team, has great cardio. The striking's improving a lot. And it's important to go back to that Viviane Arroyo fight like you were talking about, where she comes out in those first 2 rounds and gets battered. And then in the 3rd round, she's all over her. By the numbers, she outstrikes Viviane Arroyo 85-82. In that 3rd round, she finally succeeds in taking her down, and she starts to put a little bit of ground and pound on her, but her face is busted and she's tired. And that's a quality fighter in Viviane Arroyo, right? When I look at this same spot here, I'm like, if she's got that kind of grit and tenacity, keeps coming at her, does get the fight to the ground, and tries to open up with some ground and pound, this is a girl that just got TKO'd by Valentina Shevchenko. So certainly it is possible. Looking at the inside the distance prop for De La Rosa, it's plus 240. So people don't expect it to happen, but there's multiple paths here. One, the grappling. She could snack up a submission. And two, the TKO, where it's just keep flat her, get her down, and just keep pounding away. Now, when I look at Montana De La Rosa, it's like, for a girl that did wrestle in high school and was good in high school and wrestled a little bit collegiately, I believe, her wrestling's a little bit underwhelming in the UFC. But you look at the list of opponents, it's like Viviane Arroyo has strong hips, man, especially for the first 2 rounds. And Mara Buena Silva, her last time out, you know why she lost that point? Because she grabbed the fence. Because Montana De La Rosa had her down.
Yeah.
And in the second round, I believe she got her down as well. But then, Buena Silva gets up and then she just starts to hammer her and hurt her, and that's where the striking discrepancy is there. Lipski figures to have a striking advantage, although she's not a big Brazilian bruiser. She's more of like a Brazilian finesse striker. So whereas, Buena Silva's sitting down on her punches and Viviane Arroyo is sitting down on her punches, I don't necessarily see that same power coming back here from Lipski. Lipski, if anything, likes to clinch. The problem is when she clinches up, she's getting taken down. When she's getting taken down, she appears to be a fish out of water. So again, I love betting decision props, but this one, if anything, I almost feel like De La Rosa inside the distance is live. And in terms of the money line, like, it is women's MMA and it is Montana De La Rosa. So like, do I put this on my parlays high up? Like, I actually don't want to, but she will end up on the parlays at some point. It's just, even though I agree she's got the style and she should win, it's Montana De La Rosa. Like, what am I supposed to do? Put a whole bunch of confidence in there? Like, come on, anything could happen. But I do agree with the points.
Do it, Cody.
I think she gets the fight to the ground. Dude, I don't know, man. Pat Mayo's always got this thing where he's like, just bet the heavy underdog chick. And it's just like, no, Pat, that's not how
it doesn't work like that.
Not how it works. And then, he got that Maria Agapova.
Oh, Shannon Dobson.
Yes, and he was all over it. He was like, I'm betting Shannon Dobson. You'll see. And it was like, okay, pal. And and he does this all the time, and he hits them. He hits them slightly less than not, but they're always big plus monies. So, like, he's on the green on it. This, to me, screams the same thing. Like, we want to say, well, Lipski's no good and Montana De La Rosa also no good, but slightly better. It's like, that's not how you want to bet. You want to bet on, I like this fighter, not I don't like this fighter, this one's slightly better, right? You gotta really like De La Rosa. And do people like her, or do people just think she's making improvements in his, mid-range? If you had never seen Antonina Shevchenko take down and TKO Lipski, would we still be making this pick? Like, are we discrediting Lipski's ground game that much? Like, it seems like recency bias. I don't want recency bias to get me. I'm trying to avoid recency bias.
For sure. But I still believe that Lipski has horrible takedown defense. And again, like you said, fish out of water off of her back. And it just does not look good, especially going up against a high, not a high level, but like a very respectable wrestler in Montana De La Rosa. We can say she's one of the better wrestlers in this division, that's for sure.
So let's put on Manpreet's
turban. Go ahead, say
it. I was gonna say manager hat, but I guess we'll say his manager turban, right?
There we go.
You manage Ariane Lipski. Bitch can't wrestle, right? That's clearly the issue here. What do? You send her to ATT, right? Is that not the move? Is the move not get her out of King's MMA and stick her in a gym where it has the number one top women's MMA team in the sport? She's going to be able to deal with wrestlers. She's going to be able to deal with a proper game plan. Like, would that not be the move? And I feel like she has made that move. She's got an ATT. She's no doubt making improvements. The other thing is that she's 27 years old. I don't want to write her off just yet, but I'll admit, because she's a mega babe and she was the KSW champ, people definitely overrated her, and we're seeing that now. And I do have Montana De La Rosa to win, but my New Year's resolution, which we're 6 months into the New Year's, is to sniff out the apple pie shitters, and like I'm just trying to play this one a tad bit cautious.
I get it. I absolutely get it. I'm glad that we're both on the same side here with De La Rosa for sure, though. And hopefully she lands those takedowns and gets the finish or gets the decision, whatever it is. As long as she gets her hand raised, I'll be happy. Fair. All right, let's move on to the next fight. Another short notice opponent here. We got Makwan Amirkhani taking on Kirk, who makes his UFC debut. In terms of odds, obviously, we had some shock on Mr. Amirkhani, but the line is starting to come in. So, excuse me. We had the opener at minus 305 for Makwan Amirkhani. Now he's down to minus 190, plus 165 for Kamala Cork. And I think this is a solid spot for Kirk to pull off this the upset here. At Makwan Amirkhani, I like what we have with him in terms of being a strong wrestler and obviously sufficient for those Darces and those Anaconda chokes and all that stuff. But how long is that going to work? I think that Kirk has a striking advantage in this fight. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, which should help him on the ground in case this fight does hit the ground. But the longer it's on the feet, I think that we see Kirk have the advantage here. If people just watch this fight with Billy Quarantillo, they probably don't have the best image of this guy, right? Absolutely wrecking Billy Q in that first round. And then it seems like his cardio takes an absolute dive after that first round. And Billy Q does what Billy Q does. It's that Homer Simpson approach. He lets his opponents fucking beat up on him for the first round and a half. And then he comes back and absolutely whoops their ass. And unfortunately for Kirk, he was on the receiving of that ass whooping on the Contender Series a couple years ago. The one thing I just found out, though, is that Kirk actually had a broken rib in that fight. So I got to believe that's got to have some sort of hindrance on your cardio in that fight, because in his next couple fights, you see him show off better cardio, especially in that Bruno Souza fight, in a fight that was primarily in the stand-up realm. I like what we see from Kirk here, a fight-ready product down there in Arizona with Santino DeFranco and those guys. And another interesting thing, going back to that Billy Q fight, he was a minus 290 favorite going into that fight. A lot of people were very high on Kirk. I'm sure the matchmakers as well were high on Kirk. More often than not, they say that these Contender Series fights are like to find, the next guys, the more exciting guys. But sometimes they're like showcase fights too, right? There's those fights where you're just like, they literally just brought, like Will Santiago, I think was the guy's name, who fought Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland just absolutely whooped his ass, right? Like, it's just, I'm just going to bring in these guys and we're just going to showcase these guys. And for some reason, I feel like that's what happened with the Billy Q and Kamala Kirk fight, but Kirk shits the bed and Billy Q gets his hand raised and comes to the UFC. With that said, I think we're seeing Kirk make improvements, albeit he was a minus 350 favorite in both of his last two fights, one of them being against Daniel Swain, who once again quits on the stool in an LFA main event slot. Hopefully he's retired at this point in time, because there's no way he should be coming back from that. But I like the improvements that we're seeing from Kirk. I think his striking is better than Amirkhani's. I think his cardio is going to be slightly better than Amirkhani's as well, who seems to fade later in fights. And again, if this fight stays in the stand-up, where I think that Kirk will be able to keep it, especially with his black belt in jiu-jitsu, I think Makwan's going to be in some trouble. Some people might be overvaluing Amirkhani's performance against Shane Burgos in that first round, where he was landing some good shots. But we've come to realize that Shane Burgos, great Muay Thai fighter, don't get me wrong, but striking defense is not on point for him. He does get hit a lot. And, I don't want to take too much away from that fight from Amirkhani. I think we're going to get a lot more better striking defense from Kamala Kirk here, and I think he'll be able to stay safe and then dish out the better damage against Amirkhani. So I'm glad that the public is starting to realize that the line is starting to come out in a bit. I already personally have a little bit of a shot on Kamala Kirk as a dog here. I'm just trying to figure out how he wins this fight. Like, I think he could potentially get a late finish. We don't have any props on that, but even inside the distance, we got Kirk at plus 345. Ultimately, I think it's going to be him by decision at plus 390, which is even a great line as well. So I'll go Kirk decision. Am I not giving Amirkhani enough credence, or do you think that Kirk has the chops to go out there and pull off the upset as well?
Yeah, I took Kirk on the show, Dogger Pass last night, plus 205. It was like, and I didn't even get the opener, man. I missed the opener, but plus 205 just seemed like shit. I think it comes down to people like Amirkhani, right? Like, good looking. He's got
Tapology picture, dude.
Yeah, Tapology picture's legend. He's got, before he ever even like really started fighting, he was like the Mr. Finland. He was wrestling on the team. He had like some viral video where he's just eating an apple. That's all he's doing in the video, is just eating an apple, and it was like viral. Like, he's popular, and he comes to the UFC and he smashes Andy Ogle with a flying knee, and it was like, holy shit. It like kicked off something there. But he's extremely, in my opinion, one-dimensional, and it's coming. He can wrestle. This is a guy that, despite, what is finish wrestling? Is finish wrestling the elite level wrestling? No, it's high level, man. And he goes out and gets takedowns over everybody. His last fight, 3 over Edson Barbosa, took down Denny Henry once, 3 over Shane Burgos, took down Chris Fishgold, 3 over Jason Knight, 4 over Arnold Allen, 4 over Mike Wilkinson, once over Masio Fullen. The only time he has not taken down an opponent is when he hit Andy Ogle with a flying knee 8 seconds into the first round. So, yeah, listen, we can't discredit his wrestling. If he wants you down, he's going to get you down. The difference is he just tries to snatch up your neck as quick as possible. If he snatches up your neck, he finishes you in the first round. If he doesn't snatch up your neck, all of a sudden the takedowns, not that effective in rounds 2 and 3. All of a sudden the ground control, not that effective in rounds 2 and 3. And all of a sudden the striking, not that effective. Striking's never really effective to begin with. I'll admit, in the Burgos fight, looked okay. He landed 8 significant strikes in the first round. Landed 5 in the second round. And landed a fight high 9 in the third. Problem is he got hit 72 times in the third and eventually went down from Shane Burgos. But again, it's the same thing. If you can stretch this guy, you get taken down, you don't get subbed, you'll be able to happen. So again, he's popular, but check this for note, right? Andy Ogle has been long since retired. He actually retired right after that Makwan Amirkhani fight, and that was 6 years ago. Masio Follin, long since removed from the promotion and not doing good on the regional scene. Mike Wilkinson, long since removed from the promotion. Jason Knight is now bare-knuckle boxing dudes. He's bare-knuckle boxing Charles Crazy Horse Bennett, in fact. Chris Fishgold is no longer with the promotion. Danny Henry, I think might still be with the promotion, but you're getting where I'm at. This is a guy that's not even in the top 30 of the division. All of his wins have been over guys that are no longer with the promotion, or in Danny Henry's case, close to the door. Those finishes, they're all usually finishes. First round over Danny Henry, Anaconda. Second round over Chris Fishgold, Anaconda. First round over Masio Follin. It's the 3 times he's fought in good guys: Arnold Allen, Shane Burgos, and Edson Barbosa. So here's the dilemma. Most people will look at Kamala Kirk and say, he's coming in on short notice. I've never heard of him. He fits in the category of the not good guys. But you did your tape. You saw the same thing. He is a BJJ black belt, and he's crafty off the ground, man. He stays out of harm's way. He's got very good hips. He loves to make, explosive scrambles, and he's able to work it to his way back up. He lost on the Contender Series, and then he lost his subsequent fight in LFA against Bruno Souza. I scored it for him, right? Yeah. And he fought a terrible game plan. Bruno Souza is a world karate champion. You need to force the action. But remember at the end of the first, Souza botches a kick, and Kamala Kirk takes his back like that. It's so clean. It's so smooth. It's like he clearly knows what he's doing on the ground. You look at the early fights in his career, he likes to submit. But now he's adding the striking to his game, which is why he stood so long with Souza and still made it competitive. The next fight against Guilherme Santos, striking looks good, gets a TKO. That last fight with Dan Swain, I'm all over him in this headliner. I think he's a big favorite. I think I got him at 3-1. He's 320 by the official, what it went off at. But he just handles Swain. He stuffs the takedowns. He keeps it standing. He batters him. So with Makwan Amirkhani, you know what? If we're going by logic, and logic dictates he does take down everybody, Edson Barbosa, Shane Burgos included, he probably does take down Kamala Kirk. Kamala Kirk has got the type of jiu-jitsu that he's going to survive that front choke. He's going to survive that Dars. He's going to survive that first round. And once Amirkhani starts to tire a little bit and his striking is ineffective, that's when Kirk should be able to take over. Now you look at Makwan Amirkhani, the Barbosa fight, he lands 11 over the course of 15 minutes. We talked about Burgos, he lands 22 over the course of 15 minutes. You look at the Arnold Allen fight, he lands 17 over the course of 15 minutes. So Kirk's also good in a live betting opportunity where maybe he does lose the first round getting taken down, but he needs to keep this thing standing after that, and he'll be able to defeat Makwan Amirkhani with the striking. He's the kind of sizable enough underdog that you're willing to take the shot. Now, they haven't released full props because it's a short notice fight, but the over 1.5 minus 160, I love that. Because I don't think Amirkhani's submitting this BJJ black belt with a front choke in the first round and a half. Likewise, Kirk's not knocking out Makwan Amirkhani in a round and a half, and he's not submitting Makwan Amirkhani in a round and a half. So we're banking at least that 1.5 at the minus 160. But beyond that, you can get Kirk. Let's not get greedy. Let's just take him. But if you did want to get greedy, if you were a greedy person, the Kirk by decision is plus 390. And whereas I think even if Kirk is a much better striker, does keep the fight standing and beat him up, let's not discredit Makwan Amirkhani. He just went the distance with Edson Barbosa. And prior to that, he's 28 seconds away from going the distance with Shane Burgos after getting hit 105 times. So he doesn't have a bad chin, man. Kamala Kirk is not Shane Burgos. He's not Edson Barbosa. He's not likely TKOing Makwan Amirkhani. I think he can spring the upset, and it'll be by edging him in the striking for rounds 2 and 3, winning a decision. Amirkhani, if he wins this fight, I still think it's going the distance. I think he gets those takedowns but doesn't submit them, holds him down a little bit, squeaks out a 29-28 on the scorecards. But if they're going to give us plus money on that fight goes the distance, minus 160 at over 1.5, and a 390 on Kirk by decision, the degenerate side of me says I'm in for a little dog play.
I'm glad that we're agreeing on a ton of dogs on this card. I'm not sure if I should feel good or bad about it, because if it's too obvious, then maybe we're not seeing something, right? But I'm glad that we both run the tape clearly, and we can definitely see where the advantages come for Kirk here, and we can see why the market is heavy on Amirkhani, considering he's the UFC veteran taking on a short notice guy. But do that research, and you don't want to overlook a guy just because he's making his debut. He seems like a guy that stays ready, trains out of fight ready, like we said, and solid skills. Go ahead.
And so the last thing is that neither of us mentioned is the Daniel Swain fight's 3 weeks ago. So he's in shape. He wins the fight. It's a LFA headliner. You know you got a Contender Series fight already in the bank. The opportunity's there. So you stay ready. And the fact that he's at Fight Ready, which they are just on a roll right now, man. Yeah. You can't deny that they're Tracy Cortez, and we always talk about Cejudo and the Pitbull brothers, but Eric Anders was a lost fucking cause, man. And he shows up and he does one camp there, and it was like, oh, this guy did something that no one since Nick Saban has been able to do, and that's pull out the athlete out of him and turn him into a competitor. Like, shit, man. He's back to his college ball days. He's hungry. There's no doubt that Leandro Higo, like, god dang, he beat Caldwell. They do excellent things there. And one thing about it is they are in shape. They're ready to go. They've got skills everywhere. And I feel like Kirk embodies that. Makwan Amirkhani's out of SBG Ireland. Let's take Conor McGregor's name out of the table. Who you like out of that camp? You know,
Peter Quilley, bro.
You know, Peter Quilley. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least he beat the other Pitbull brother. But we've got Aisling Daly and Cathal Pendridge, Chris the Killing Fields.
Patty Holohan.
Yeah, Brad Katona went there. Things didn't go good for him. Hakeem Dawadu does spend some time there, and he's on a killer roll right now. So you can't completely... I know. People, listen, no offense to Canada, but like at some point you got to you
spread your wings.
Yeah, you got to spread your wings. You got to broaden your horizons. You mentioned it with Trinaldo. It's like, you know, what's the point of moving at this stage? But it's like you're never too old to learn something new. I know we're getting off topic here, and the show's probably starting to run late. But the Frank Mir versus Steve Cunningham fight. From Trailer a couple weeks back. I kept thinking, like, why would he take this fight? It makes no sense. Why would he take this fight? No sense. But for Frank, he's like, well, I plan on going back to MMA, and I thought, you know, I want to test myself as a martial artist. Like, oh, I know I can grapple. Clearly, Frank Mir knows how to grapple. I know I can do that. But can you box? If you just had to box, like, it's challenging yourself in these one areas to get better. And now I'll tell you what, when he comes back to MMA, his boxing will have improved leaps and bounds from going 4 rounds with Steve Cunningham, which I didn't think he was going to go. It might have been 6 rounds. I didn't think he was going the distance with Steve Cunningham, who I get it's 44, but dropped Tyson Fury once upon a time. Is a legitimate cruiserweight world champion. Like, but it's that pursuit for like adding new skills to your game, right? So even though you love your gym, and I started with this gym, it's like your coach is a BJJ black belt. The first gym I was ever at, right? The coach is a black belt. But if that coach went to a competition, he wouldn't have taken last place, right? Against the other black belts, because they were younger and hungrier and better shape. So if I was getting ready for a fight, right? Am I pushing myself? I'm training with a black belt. I'm training with a great. He's got a lot of knowledge, but I don't have the bodies. And it's the same thing with the wrestling. First guy I ever wrestled with, he wrestled at the University of Guelph. That was killer shit, man. This dude wrestled in university. But realistically, it's like the best wrestler from Guelph wouldn't cut it on a D3 program in the States. So like, who am I actually wrestling with, right? The same thing with boxing. It's like, yo, this guy competed at the Brampton Cup, which you remember the Brampton Cup, baby. It's the fucking boxing tournament for amateurs in Canada, in Ontario.
Yeah.
You guys won it, eh? You guys won the Brampton Cup, didn't you? RG's camp?
I don't recall.
That trophy was always sitting in the lobby there.
I don't recall if they won the Brampton Cup, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, regardless, it's like, there's that, and then it's like, oh, this guy trained in at the Olympic Training Center, and was unsuccessful in an Olympic bid. So there's always that next level. And then when you get to ATT, that's when it's like, oh shit, that guy wrestled at the Olympics and that guy boxed at the Olympics. I got Howard Davis Jr., I got Steve Mocco, I got Matt Brown, he's a world champion in MMA, I got Dean Thomas. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. So as much as I hate to be like, there's an area that you can go to improve, there is. And in Kirk's case, Kirk's going out and seeking the best improvements he can. And in Amirkhani's case, I think he's 32, eh? It's not like, we remember he's so good looking, you think maybe he's still this young chip on, but it's like, yeah, he came in, he had some fun fights, he had a little winning streak, and as soon as they tested him the first time, he lost to Arnold Allen. As soon as they tested him the second time, he lost to Shane Burgos. As soon as they tested him the third time, he lost to Edson Barboza. Now, I get we're writing off Quellen Kirk is not a test, but it's like, I think he can spring one out here. Now, Tom Breese, who knows? I know we're about to talk about that one right now, but like, he's an apple pie shitter, my friend.
The forever favorite kicking off the card, or the main card here, we got Tom Breese going up against Antonio Arroyo. Minus 240 on Breese, like I said, always a heavy favorite. Opened up at minus 265, so Antonio Arroyo has seen a little bit of action, who's sitting at plus 200 at this point in time. No matter how many times I rack my brain in this matchup, it's hard to trust both guys. And it's even hard enough to trust Antonio Arroyo, even though he seems to be the value side here at plus 200. I just don't want to bet the price on him. He's making all these mistakes against Deron Winn, allowing him to, obviously it's hard to defend takedowns against the guy who has the level of wrestling of Deron Winn, but just continuously making the same mistakes over and over and over again is just not a good look. And then obviously his cardio does not look good either. 0-2 in the UFC in this point in time. Hard to back a guy like that. But then you see Tom Breese. The man has all the skills in the world, even has the body and the frame and the power to just be an absolute powerhouse in this in these divisions, welterweight and middleweight, right? Like the guy's a big dude. But beating Dan Kelly and having the wins that he's had, it's not the most respectable, especially when he's going up against other guys and coming up short, right? Losing to Brendan Allen, losing to Omari Akhmedov, showing a lot of gaffes in those fights, not to mention pulling guillotine immediately against Omari Akhmedov, like Omari Akhmedov's never seen that before. I mean, like, it's just, it makes no sense why he would try to pull it. I know he's doing all these grappling competitions, fought for a Polaris a couple times, and now he thinks he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu or something like that, trying to snatch that guillotine real quick on Omari, but it just doesn't work out. Then in the second round, starts to go for more submissions and all that stuff, doesn't work out. And then when it doesn't, it looks like he just gives up the arm triangle choke, which just looks horrible. It doesn't look like he tries to defend it at all. Just tries to breathe it out. I'm not sure if you remember the commentary over there. DC's like, oh, he's out. Oh, he's out. No, I guess he's so relaxed. And then tap, 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 tap. And he's like, no, DC, he's not doing anything. He's not trying to fight the choke at all. So there's a lot of question marks regarding his grappling. His striking, top notch, right? When he's in the zone, his jab is amazing. His ability to maintain the distance is amazing. He has a ton of power in his hands, like I said. I think he's going to have the striking advantage over Arroyo here, whose strength is striking, right? I don't think he's much of a grappler. I don't think Arroyo is much of a jiu-jitsu player or anything like that. So I don't think that Breese will have much trouble in those aspects if it does hit the ground. But it all comes down to mental with Breese, right? We never know what kind of mental state he's going to be in. There's so many times where he's pulled out of a fight the day before. I believe he pulled out of a fight a day of the fight too. Like the guy, we just don't know what we're ever getting with him. But if he ever comes in like with a full mind frame of I'm going to go in there and beat this guy, he performs like the best he's ever performed. Dan Kelly, you better believe he's coming in super confident into that fight. KB Buller, you better believe he's coming into that fight super confident. And then the Omari Akhmedov fight just absolutely shits the bed. So there's a lot of question marks regarding Breese. So I'm not going to be trusting him at that minus 240, minus 245 range. I still believe he wins. Now we want to take out a prop here. I think Breese has all the capabilities in the world of finishing Arroyo, but we just can't confirm or guarantee that he's going to be able to do such things. So what are the props here that we got? We got Breese by KO plus 175, Breese by submission plus 630, Breese inside the distance plus 125, but I just don't have enough trust in the guy. So if you want to go Breese by decision, you got plus 245. I ultimately will be going with Breese by decision at plus 245, but I can't trust him. I definitely trust him a little bit more than I trust Antonio Arroyo, who shows just glaring holes in his game and a horrible gas tank. But it's not so good on the other side either. So, like, I would call this the dumpster fire fight of the night because we just don't know what the fuck's going to happen here. You would rather be holding a plus 200 ticket than a minus 240 ticket. But if that plus 200 ticket says Antonio Arroyo on it, I'm burning that shit right away because I just don't know if that's going to come through for us. I will go Breese. I will go Breese by decision at plus 245. Please give me some more clarity on this fight.
Yeah, honestly, what could I give? Because we don't know what's going on in Breeze's head. I mean, he's very talented, no doubt about that. He's got the skills, but if he's not feeling it on that any given day, then he doesn't perform at his level, and betting that is extremely difficult. You just don't know where he's at. There's the assumption that he should be confident, and if he is confident that he's going to have this and that, but again, there's just nothing to it. He blew up on the UFC scene like he was supposed to be the next big thing. He's undefeated, he looks good. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got that good striking. He's got the jab. When he beat Keita Nakamura, right, he was minus 1150. And he got taken down 3 times, and he didn't look good. But he's almost a 12-1 favorite, and he's undefeated. Sky's the limit. But since then, it's just been downhill, man. Downhill. He pulled out of the Ian Heinisch fight, like you're saying, day of the fight, because he had, like, an anxiety attack. And then they pulled him off the card. They scratched him. They bring him back against Brandon Allen. He looks deathly afraid. Finished in the first round. He gets the KB Bular fight. And KB Bular looks deadly afraid, and Breese looks good. And then the very next fight, Omari Akhmedov, he looks deathly afraid. Tom Breese is a black belt. Like, should a black belt be getting submitted by Omari Akhmedov like that? Like, I don't think so. But it's, again, he's in his own head. The first round he loses. He loses the first round. He's getting taken down. He now sees that Omari is extremely strong and is taking him down. He knows he's losing. His brain is now casting doubt. We need to get out of here, Tom. Tom, it's time to go. The choke's on. I could fight it, Maybe he's out. He taps. The Brandon Allen fight, it's the same thing. He's in a bad spot, but instead of trying to improve position, it's like accepts the position. Tom, if you wait here, brain's telling you, Tom, if you wait here a little longer, they're going to stop it. And we can go home. So you wait a little bit longer. There's other guys that'll break both hands and fucking come forward. And we talk about it all the time, a guy that'll fight for your dollar. That's who you want to back. Tom Breese could very well win this fight. He's not going to fight for your dollar. And that's sad because he is extremely talented. The jab's on point, like you said. He does have a, legitimate BJJ skills. He is a black belt, 6'3" of this weight class. He's long. He's got good cardio. He takes his time. Where does he lose his fight to Arroyo? Arroyo's gas tank's non-existent, right? Arroyo, I believe, is also a black belt, but the advantage goes towards Tom Breese. The wrestling goes towards Tom Breese. The striking goes towards Tom Breese. It's just, again, you can't trust him. And I honestly thought when you look at Antonio Arroyo, right, he gives up his fight on Contender Series against Steven Regman. He gives up 3 takedowns, right? Then he comes into the UFC against Andre Muniz, where he also gives up 3 takedowns. And then his fight against Deron Winn, he gives up 12. Deron Winn completely gassed out. Deron Winn, very undersized. And Deron Winn just spams these 12 takedowns whenever he wants them. They're there. Clearly, takedowns is the way. Tom Breese has never completed a takedown in the UFC. In fact, I think he's 0 for 7. 0
for 9, I think.
Yeah. 0 for 9, right. So if he's not offensively taking guys down, then I can't rely on him just taking Arroyo down and settling into his guard. So now we got to strike with Arroyo. Still advantage towards Breese. But if he doesn't knock Arroyo out, I don't really think he's going to. Arroyo's just going to take his punches and maybe keep coming, and that's going to cause Breese to cast self-doubt. Shit, he took my shots. But Arroyo's cardio is no good, man. And the Deron Winn fight, it was a catch weight of 195. This fight's at 185. Like, he's got to cut a furthermore 10 pounds. Like, I don't know, man. To me, it's got writing. Like, I don't want to take that shot on Arroyo. I don't want to just blindly fade Breese. But I've also learned enough from Breese to be like, he's not the kind of guy that you bank heavily on. Looking at the line that I liked, the only thing I liked on it was at over 1.5 or minus 165. Just because, again, like, if Arroyo's going to break him and take him out later, he's going to have to do that. He's not huge on finishes. I don't think his jiu-jitsu is good enough to just quickly cement Breese. I don't think his power is good enough to quickly knock out Breese. And Breese, meanwhile, a guy that relies a lot on the jab is not going to knock out a whole lot of guys. Turns out a jab was enough to defeat KB Bular. But I don't know that beyond that, you're just going to jab a guy into death all the time, right? You're not Rob Font. And even then, the jab doesn't get the knockout over Cody Garbrandt. That's the jab is why, like, in boxing, it's so important you set up the power shot, and in MMA they don't seem to use it all that much. They should. The best guys in the world, Georges St. Pierre, Gegard Mousasi, Rob Font, all those great jab performances. Like, a jab can win the fight easy, but guys prefer to just align you up with the right hand, Jeremy Stevens style. So is it effective? Yeah, it's definitely effective. It can get the victory. Breese can just use the jab to defeat Arroyo, but I'm just looking at it as using it to set up an over 1.5. But again, I just don't have the trust in Tom Breese, to be perfectly honest with you. Although officially, gun to my head, PRP picks, all that jazz, it is going to be Tom Breese.
For sure. I'm glad we're both on Breese here, but again, I'm not trusting him heavily with my money here. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Duško Todorovic going up against Gregory Rodrigues, coming in on short notice. Rodrigues, most people would know him for losing to Jordan Williams on the Contender Series. I believe that fight was last year. Gets knocked out in the first round, and then goes out there and pulls off 2 victories against Al Matavio and then Josh Framda while capturing the middleweight LFA title a couple weeks ago. The interesting part is this third fight is going to be his third fight in 2.5 months. The guy is on the horse, just trying to get that UFC contract, and luckily he has that opportunity to step into here on short notice to fight Duško Todorovic. But I'm not sold on him yet. It seems like a lot of people are sold on him. In terms of odds, the line has been closing, and man, it's closing pretty rapidly. We had him all the way up at plus 165. Now he's down to plus 110. And it's funny how the public always does this. We're doing it to Santiago Ponzinibbio later on in this card as well, where they're high on some guy, and then as soon as he gets that first loss, like, he sucks. Why do we even back him the first time? So they're doing that with Duško here, and I think it's completely unwarranted. I think Gregory could win this fight. Don't get me wrong; it is a possibility. But look at all those shots that Duško took against Punahele Soriano and never went out. The guy just kept getting hit and kept getting rocked, but the guy never went out. The guy has a chin on him. Let's give him that. And Punahele, he made the slight adjustment in terms of instead of throwing his big winging hooks, he starts going down the middle. That closes a little bit more distance a lot quicker, and he's able to find the button on Duško. I even said in the breakdown for that fight, I don't like his hands down striking defense style, pretty much reliant on his head movement to get out of the way of the big shots. It's only going to take him so far. I think he's going to be the faster guy here against Gregory. I don't think Gregory is that fast. I think Gregory has a ton of knockout power. That is something that we need to worry about. But I think both guys have a little bit of durability issues, but I think that Dushko is slightly more durable, even though he got knocked out in his last fight against a much better striker, in my opinion, a much more explosive fighter in Punahele Soriano. Gregory Rodrigues, the one thing that I keep hearing about him, especially from the commentary team, whenever they're commentating his fights, is that back in the day, he used to train with the legends, right? Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, down there at X Gym. Nowadays, he's finding himself there at Sanford MMA, trying to, elevate his game with Henry Hoofda. And over the last 2 fights, it's definitely worked. But, this isn't Almatavio. This isn't Josh Frem. This is Duško Todorovic, who I believe has some solid skill and still has a lot of potential to go out there and have some big wins in his UFC career. I think this is another spot for him to go out there and get his hand raised once again. There was decent value on Gregory Rodrigues, I believe, at that plus 160-ish, plus 150-ish line. But now that it's getting closer and closer, if you give me minus 130 on Duško, I'm probably going Duško here. I do think he has all the chops to go out there and beat the Brazilian Barack. I'm going Todorovic. I'm going Todorovic by KO plus 180. I think that's a solid spot. I think this fight's going to be violence either way. I wouldn't mind a small stab at the under 1.5 at plus 105. I would much rather the under 2.5 at minus 185. I know that's more chalky, but I don't expect this fight to go the full 15, especially with the Gregory. We just don't know how much of an impact having 3 fights in 2.5 months is going to have on a guy, right? That's 3 times you're cutting weight. That's 3 times you're putting yourself through a bit of a training camp, getting ready for somebody. It's a little bit of a red flag for me at a certain extent. And it kind of surprised me that he's only 29 years old, right? He looks like he's fucking 47 years old.
I know.
But he goes out there.
Up with that?
Right? The guy's the same age as me. I'm like, what the fuck?
And I'm 29.
That doesn't make sense. He's like the Greg Oden of MMA, if you even know who Greg Oden is, Cody. Do you know who Greg Oden is?
Greg Odom or Odin?
Odin.
Does he play basketball?
He used to. While I'm finishing with this breakdown, please Google Greg Oden and tell me how that guy is fucking 19 years old when he's 19 years old. But either way, I'm finishing this fight with I like Duško. I like Duško by KO. I do think he goes out there and gets the finish. I think he's going to be the faster one. I think he'll be able to stay out of the way of the big shots and actually land the bigger shots on Gregory. Both guys could get finished, but I will go with Duško, and I'll go with him to win this fight via KO. And we got plus 1, like I said, plus 180. Plus 180 on Todorovic by KO. And Cody, once you pulled up Greg Oden, Oden.
Yeah, I got it. How old did they say he is?
Well, he was 19. He was 19 and he looked like he was 45.
Right. The one that always got me was Gazmurad Antigulov. There's
no
way he's 34. And when he was in the UFC the first time around, they're like, he's 30. It's like his nose is like to the left. He's fucking bald with gray hair. It's like, come on, man. Yeah. Come on. You'll get the biggest appreciation out of this one. Click Adrian Woolley Sherdog.
Oh, I love me some Woolley.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's why I said you'll get the biggest kick. A lot of other people will be like, what are you talking about? But click Adrian Woolley. Mind you, Adrian Woolley's like
40. My God.
And he's like 49, by the way, right?
Jeez.
I know. And I had a talk with him one time. I was like, what the fuck, dude? He just starts laughing, and he's like, this is what you got to realize. The UFC's management told us we don't sign guys to the UFC for the first time over 35. And they do that, right? Tough, you don't get in if you're over 35. Like, you have to make an exception. So they were like, he's not 30. They lied about it. He's not 35. They told at the time 33, because now he says 38, so it's 5 years ago, right? They're like, he's only 33. There's only 33. So when they cast the thing to Sherdog, they just entered the age as 33. What's Sherdog going to ask for, a birth certificate? No, right? Of course, right? And so then all of a sudden it's like they're saying he's 33. So now an MMA writer, Adrian Woolley's fighting this weekend, right? They do their research. They click on Sherdog. They says he's 33. So the article now says he's 33. Tapology, shit, we don't got a birthday for him. So Sherdog does. So they take the... That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
No way Antigulov is not 42 years old. No way. There's no way. That I agree. When I saw Bruno or Gregory Rodrigues, I was like, come on. Like you said, you called him Brazilian Barack. Hilarious. He totally does. But he's like one of these big, strong, physical guys. They say he's a BJJ world champion. Mind you, he hardly ever uses BJJ in his fights. And then you see how much his striking's advanced. It's like, Is he 29? It seems like he's got a lifetime of skills, but regardless, he's at the right place, Sanford MMA. He needs to refine his skills a little bit. What you do notice in the Jordan Williams fight is he comes out very hot. He lands 2 nice head kicks on Jordan Williams. The right hand's flashing. It's a little bit stiff. It's a little bit robotic, but the second he gets hit in return from Williams, he completely just stiffens up against the cage and gets put up. He was good at being the hammer. He was not good at being the nail. Now, against Al Montalvo and Josh Friend, he's the hammer, and we know he's good at being the hammer. Again, he's got good finishing abilities. He's got good power. It's whether he's able to take that return fire. And against Dusko, one would have to imagine if you don't knock out Dusko, you're going to have to be in a fight with him because the guy's always moving forward, and the guy throws a ton of volume. Remember this fight on Contender Series against Teddy Ash? He actually got outlanded by Teddy Ash, despite the fact that I thought he won all 3 rounds. But 109 to 102, it's all output. He keeps going, but he is hittable. But he's got great output. That debut against Daquan Townsend, for as limited as he is, he is freaking durable, man. It's very hard to put away Daquan Townsend. Even Fentanyl was not able to put down Daquan Townsend.
You know it's
coming. But Dusko just smashes him.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you know what? If you're going to stay in there with this guy, and he's young, and he's improving, and he's got great output, and he's got good cardio, and he's undefeated. We already talked about this many times so far. You got to lose to eventually figure out the mistakes, but he keeps getting away with this shit. In his mind, he thinks he's Sanchai. Problem is, not Sanchai. He's not Rafael Fiziev. He's not Neo from The Matrix. And so it catches up to him big time. Like Soriano, the first 3 minutes of him versus Soriano, he's in it. It's competitive, but it's like sand in the hourglass. Like you're just waiting for the sand to run out. Like, you can't fight like that. He's going to eventually hit you. Soriano has a ton of power, and when Soriano eventually connects, he just topples him over. That's the one worry here, is that could you look at me dead in the eye and definitively tell me that Dusko is going to come out here with his hands up? We don't know. We have to see. We have to see how he comes back from this. He also just got knocked down 4 times against Soriano. It took a lot of damage theoretically to the head. It's only 5 months ago. He's still young enough. Did he improve those defensive lapses? How many improvements did he make? One thing of the guys from Sanford MMA is the good guys will beat your ass for 15 minutes. And the bad guys are only able to beat your ass for 7. But they all beat your ass. You know what I mean? Even Sean Soriano is our most recent example. You don't just walk through these guys, right? You literally look at all of them. Who was the other guy just lost on Bellator? Jordan. Fuck, cost me a ticket. Doesn't matter. It's like they're always competitive for and then it's Michael Johnson effect. The second and third round, shit kind of falls off the cliff. Gilbert Burns, second and third round, shit kind of falls apart. But it's like you don't just walk through these guys. Caldwell was the same thing against Higo. He looked great in that first round, and then the second and third round, he fell apart. This to me is similar. Gregory Rodrigues, if Dusko wins, I'm picking Dusko. I like that Dusko by TKO. It's a big plus money prop. I know you mentioned that one as well. But Dusko needs to really get this thing done probably beyond the first 3-4 minutes. He needs to extend this to the second or the third, take advantage of Rodrigues' cardio, take him into deeper waters and put him away. Because in the first 3 or 4 minutes, Rodrigues is going to be throwing heat. And the way Dusko fights with his hands down, the way he just got knocked out, the way he was getting dropped by seemingly every shot that was landing clean, it's all cause for concern enough that I get where the lines... Dusko should be a little bit of a bigger favorite, but I get why people are hesitant to bank on him. It's like he's probably a good live betting opportunity, survive that early portion. But I think he gets the job done. He's just got to extend Rodrigues outside of that first.
It's a perfect example of what have you done for me lately, right? You lose one fight, you suck. So we'll see if Dusko is able to reverse his fortune.
The official prop, though, is the under 2.5 minus 185. If Dusko's going to win this thing, he's going to take him later into the second. He's going to take him out. If Rodrigues wins this thing, he's going to take him out in the first. But regardless, this thing isn't going beyond. I know you mentioned you like the 2.5, and you were looking at that 1.5 too, and I was thinking, shit, the 1.5. This could be fireworks. It really could, but. The same time, it's a prize fight. Both guys are in it. They're willing to go. I don't know. Shit. The way Williams took him out, the way my brain thinks, too many things come up. But the under 2.5 feels a lot good. You can relax and chill and not have to overthink it. So at minus 185, that's really not a bad price tag in my opinion.
A couple extra points. You get fight one, start round 3, minus 160. Not too bad either. Still, it'll be nice to have those extra 2.5 minutes in the third round if that third round does end up actually starting. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. Easily the fight that I'm most excited for, the most intrigued by, and probably will have the least amount of money on because I have no idea what the fuck's going to happen here. We got Santiago Ponzinibbio going up against Miguel Baeza, and we got a lot of steam coming in on Santiago. This fight's pretty much going to be a pick 'em by fight time, but Baeza opened up minus 160. He's down down to -120, and Santiago Ponzinibbio is sitting around +100. Now, another case, just like Duško Todorovic, who knows what, what have you done for me lately? You go out there, you get knocked out by Li Jingliang. You were never that good to begin with. That's what I'm starting to hear on some people's channels and stuff. And it just doesn't make that much sense to me. He was on an absolute tear before taking off that 2.5 years, and he had injuries, infections, all that shit to worry about. And he looked very hesitant in the last fight, right? He looked very, very hesitant. They were pretty much playing patty cake with their legs for like 4.5 minutes until he finally throws his hands and then gets a freaking caught. And you see Li Jingliang uncork a beautiful counter on him and absolutely stifle his ass and knock him out in that fight. There's just too many question marks about Ponzinibbio, because if he comes back like 75% or 80% closer to what he used to look like, he probably wins this fight, right? Baeza is a great up-and-comer. He's a strong fighter. Momentum is obviously on his way, and he could definitely make it into the top 10, top 5. But Ponzinibbio is a killer in his own right. But if he doesn't come back and look anywhere close to what he did, like if he looks like what he did in the Li Jingliang fight, he's going to get eaten up here. I mean, it seemed like he was gun shy. It seems like he didn't want to fight, or, it just seems like he was trying to get the rust off. And before he knew it, he was already staring up at the lights. Now, we don't know how much that's going to play with him mentally here, right? You come back after 2.5 years off, you get knocked out. Now you're coming into another fight against a young, hungry, up-and-comer in Miguel Baeza. Are you going to be more gun-shy? Are you going to be scared to get knocked out again? Who knows how that's going to play with him mentally. But if he does come back, like I said, looking 75 to 80% closer to what he used to look like, he should be able to win this fight, which ultimately leads me to, I think Miguel Baeza wins this fight because he's been active. He's improving on a fight-to-fight basis, comes out of a great training camp over there at MMA Masters. Both guys are down in Florida. Ponzinibbio obviously out of ATT. But Baeza, I like his striking style. It seems like he learned from the Matt Brown fight, right? He got rocked a couple times in that Matt Brown fight, even to the extent where Matt Brown knocked his mouthpiece out of his mouth with one of those combinations. But he had the wherewithal to stay in the fight, rock him in the same round, and then finish him in the following round. And then in the Takashi Sato fight, we saw him hands way up, just making sure that he's not getting hit, making sure that he's staying as safe as possible. And then he goes out there and pulls off the submission at the end of the second round. Now, this is a big step up from Takashi Sato to Santiago Ponzinibbio, right? Even from Matt Brown to Ponzinibbio, it's a huge step up. But again, we just don't know where mentally Ponzinibbio is at and if he's going to ever come back and look like the same thing that he's looked like before. And the one analogy or one comparison I've been using throughout this week is Jeff Neal, right? Jeff Neal had a little bit of time off, had to deal with a bunch of health shit that he was going through, comes back, fights Wonderboy Thompson. I think even if he didn't go through that health scare, he would probably still lose to Wonderboy Thompson because he's such a crafty veteran. But then he loses the Neil Magny fight. And then what happened after that Neil Magny fight? He puts out an Instagram post. I haven't felt the same since the stuff that I've had to go through. And I know they've gone through different things here, but that just lets you know that a fighter will, if they are affected by something, it could fuck them up for good. And that could be what's happening with Ponzinibbio here too. Not 100% sure, but it's just too much of a wild card dumpster fire type of situation for me to be confident on either side. But I do still end up on the Baeza side at the end of the day. I could see this being a violence fight. I see a lot of people touting the under 1.5 at +130. Not a bad spot, but I could see both guys being so tentative and kind of disciplined, trying to wait and look and find their moments. Maybe we'll see that patented calf kick from Baeza again, right? That's how he likes to approach his fights, debilitate his opponents, their wheels, and then start to let his hands go. Maybe that's something that Ponzinibbio did too, right? That, remember the Neil Magny performance? He did for like 3.5 rounds and finally finished him with some punches at the ending of it. But I do side with Baeza here. I think if the finish comes, it comes after the 1.5 round mark. The under 2.5 -145 is not too bad. Fight doesn't go to decision -195, a little bit chalky, but I do think that's a decent spot. But I'll go with Baeza TKO +190. Not too bad, but man, I don't want to completely write off Ponzinibbio because the guy's a beast. He's 34 years old, so he's getting up there a little bit. But at 34, we know you can still go out there and perform close to your prime or close to what you look like at your best. But we just haven't seen that from Ponzinibbio as of late. So I'll go with Baeza, but by no means am I lock of the night type confident on this fight. But I'll go with Baeza by KO +190. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I would look at it just from like a pass as far as a money line perspective. I think you basically nailed everything. How can you trust Santiago Ponzinibbio, the layoff? He comes back. He doesn't look good against Jingliang Li, but you give him a pass, and Baeza's improving. Like, there's arguments to be made both sides. My thing is, like, I'm not fully sold on Baeza yet. And yeah, he could get better. I expect him to get better. He's still young enough. He's at MMA Masters. He improves a lot fight to fight. Could be interesting. It's just there's not enough out of him right now. So interesting enough, right? That loss to Jingliang Li snaps Santiago Ponzinibbio's 7-fight winning streak. That 7-fight winning streak starts with a win over Andrea Stahl by knockout, UFC Fight Night 80 in December 2015, right? That's like 3 months after Baeza turns pro. Santiago Ponzinibbio is 5 fights into the UFC, was 4-0 in the Ultimate Fighter, including a win over Leonardo Santos before he got injured, forced out of the finals. Had 22 pro fights, all before Baeza even turned pro. So, like, experience is on his side heavily. And when you look at, the guys he's fought, Gunnar Nelson, Neil Magny, Nordine Taleb, Court McGee, like, a lot of savvy veterans in the mix, a lot of guys that are able to test him in the mix. Miguel Baeza has been kind of fed, a route that young prospects get. He looked awful against Victor Reina on the Contender Series. He got outstruck like 89-61 against Victor Reina. Yes, that Victor Reina. But he dropped Victor Reina at the end of, I think, the second and the third. Maybe at the end of the first and the second. But the 2 knockdowns win in those rounds, and then he wins a decision. But he got outstruck. He doesn't look good. Then he draws Hector Aldana. Okay, it's a free win. Matt Brown is 40, coming off a long layoff. Still manages to hurt him, and he puts Matt Brown away. That's a credible win because it's Matt Brown. It's a big name win, but it's not the Matt Brown. It is Matt Brown, but a grain of salt is all I'm trying to say. And then he beats Takashi Sato. He was booked to fight Mickey Gall and Jeremiah Wells, and he was not medically cleared and yanked from the Jeremiah Wells fight. All I'm saying is that, like, on one hand, he's still just got a lot of growth to go through still. He is one of these guys that is... All the other guys I liked on this card, the Mason Jones of the world, the guys that were coming up, the Dudo Todorovic, they're coming off that loss. They're undefeated. They get exposed at some point. They become much better fighters. Miguel Baeza will be just like that. He'll get exposed at some point. He'll come back a much better fighter. But he is there to get exposed. I just don't know if Ponzinibbio is that guy. Only because... Yeah, dude, the 2.5 year long layoff, the eye infection, the bone infection, the everything seriously slowed him down. He is 34, but he's a couple months away from his 35th birthday. And the Jingliang Li fight maybe looks a little hesitant. My biggest takeaway is he looks slow. He just did not look like he had that same explosive style that he had before. He fights with his hands really low. Not Dudo Todorovic low, but he fights with his hands really low, and he likes to almost counter, like bait you in and then counter you with the left hand. In that fight against Jingliang Li, he gets beat to the punch routinely. Like, his reflexes are not quite what they used to be. Now, timing's obviously going to be off, long layoff, ring rust. I mean, all those things are going to be factors, but probably the difference between being 32 and 35 is certainly a factor as well. But, you rewatch that fight, and Jingliang Li looks awesome. It's not just that Ponzinibbio doesn't look good. Jingliang Li looks solid. And everything he throws is a 3-punch combination. Everything he throws is heavy, but they're combinations. When I look at Baeza versus Sato especially, he likes a lot of one-and-done shots. He likes the overhand right, one single shot. He likes the calf kick, one single shot. High guard doesn't really lead to combination punching, but he'll go high guard, one single shot. Now, the ground game is what submits Takashi Sato. That shouldn't be a factor here. I don't see him taking down Ponzinibbio. We'll have 2 strikers going at it. Ponzinibbio is the more experienced. He is technically the higher level. It's just how much has he regressed. So we've got Ponzinibbio's ceiling has always been better. He's the better fighter, in my opinion, than Baeza. Ponzinibbio's on his way down. Baeza's on his way up. At which point do both of those meet? Well, we're only going to come find out on Saturday. But I think it's like almost even money now. But it was slight underdog for Santiago Ponzinibbio. And that's kind of the side I lean myself. But as far as a one singular prop, I know you said people like that all violence under 1.5. I went with the not so violent over 1.5 because I agree. I think they're going to stare at each other a little bit. Ponzinibbio versus Jingliang Li, he was not looking to rush it. He was not coming at him like the Gunnar Nelson fight where he finger blasted him worse than a virgin on prom night. Like, he was not aggressive. He was like, I'm going to take my time. It wasn't like the Mike Perry fight. He was like, I'm going to look to take my... If he takes his time against Baeza, perfect. We're going to at least try to get this 1.5. Baeza, meanwhile, does show a lot of knockdowns. He does have good power, but because it's one and done, he's not Jingliang Li, let's face it. And he's not throwing that kind of heat and that kind of volume. If he does get a finish, I would like to think it's after, a round and a half in. So if I had to make a prop play, I don't really like the props on this fight, but if I had to make a prop play, the prop that I went with was the over 1.5 at -160.
I wish they played it a little bit more patient in that Jingliang and Ponzinibbio fight. I had the over 1.5. I was heavily invested in that, and I was surprised they had it at 1.5. And then he uncorks that bomb at the end of that
it
first.
Was going
it was looking
that
good,
direction.
man.
Yeah,
it was looking so good.
It looked like a sparring match. They're kind of staring a little bit. Ponzinibbio is kind of matadoring, but he's not looking to engage. And then, boom, he gets hit. But Jingliang Li, man, like, talk about a big bruiser. Like, that guy's, he's probably outside of outside of the, the former champion, I suppose. He's like the number one Chinese fighter. Like, he's
Yeah.
built a career. He hasn't just came in as like a flash in the pan. Like, he's fought in legit contenders and just continuously gets better every time. So I like to give Santiago Ponzinibbio a slight pass, but I know at some point Baeza's skill set is going to surpass what the Pons brings to the table. I just almost feel like giving Pons one more shot and thinking Baeza needs to lose before he really finds his true potential.
All right, there's a bunch of guys actually moving up and moving down in weight here. One that we actually failed to touch on earlier in the card with Francisco Trinaldo going up to 170 pounds from 155. I think that's a great look for him, especially at this age that he's currently at, and obviously missed weight in his prior fight. Another spot was actually coming up right here is Laureano Staropoli going up in weight to fight Roman Dolidze. It seems like Staropoli wants to make a home at 185 pounds. And I didn't completely understand it at first when I found it out, right? I was just like, why is he going up? He didn't remind me of somebody that was super big at welterweight to begin with, but he's 6'1". He's a pretty tall dude, right? He's only giving up an inch in height to Roman Dolidze, who obviously this is going to be his second fight down at middleweight. He used to compete at light heavyweight in the UFC division as well. But this is an intriguing matchup. I'm having trouble with this one, but I do end up on the Staropoli side of things. I'm not that big of a fan of Dolidze and his style. Like on the regional scene, he seemed like the guy that would go out there and just try to knock your head off, right? He just a bruiser, wants to go forward and wing those big hooks and kind of goat you on and then eventually try to knock you out. In the UFC, it's almost the same, but he's a little bit more friendly to try to go for that heel hook, right? Even to the point of looking over at his coach like, hey, you want me to submit him, coach? Okay, I'll try to submit him. And then he ends up with his opponent. He doesn't submit him. He ends up with his opponent on top of him. So poor fight IQ, especially if you're Eric Nixick, right? His newer Extreme Couture coach. That's got to have you like pulling your hair out. I'm pretty sure Eric Nixick is close to being bald, so I'm not sure he's pulling his hair out to begin with. But regardless, very, very, questionable fight IQ decision making from Mr. Roman Dolidze, which just doesn't make me feel comfortable in terms of putting money on him. Laureano Staropoli, a little bit of a flashy striker, unorthodox striker, likes to stick and move. That's pretty much how he was able to beat Thiago Alves. And then he drops his next two fight most recently to Mr. Tim Means. But Tim Means, great technical striker, is able to set traps on the feet, something that I highly doubt we'll see Roman Dolidze be able to do, which leads me to believe that if this remains a striking fight, we'll see Staropoli actually outstrike him from the outside. My concern here, though, is if it's not if. I'm pretty certain that Dolidze is going to be the stronger fighter here. And if that's the case, and Dolidze wants to, try to take this fight to the ground, I think he'll be successful in doing so. My concern, though, if you're looking to back Dolidze with that type of approach is I don't think he has the greatest top pressure. I don't think he's the greatest on top, and I don't think he'll be able to keep Staropoli down long enough to actually make that takedown worth anything. Unless, of course, Staropoli lands nothing on the feet in a round where Dolidze gets him down over and over again. Again, highly questionable fight on either side. I do land on the underdog once again, though. I do like Staropoli. I feel like at least 75% of this fight will remain on the feet, and we'll see Staropoli go out there and outstrike the guy for the majority of the 15 minutes. And I think we'll see Dolidze take another L. Dolidze, questionable cardio as well. I do think he starts to slow down late in fights, and I think that's where Staropoli will start to shine even more. So Staropoli, I think he will take at least rounds 2 and round 3 en route to a decision victory, and the prop on that is currently sticking at plus 255. I don't see this fight finishing. I think it's going to be kind of slow paced. I don't think either guy will get the finish. I don't think we'll see Dolidze get that heel hook that he keeps trying to seek for every single fucking fight. And I think that we'll see Staropoli, land on him over and over again and get that judge's nod just based on volume, output, and the damage that he's dishing out. So I'm going Staropoli decision, and I believe I said it was plus 255. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah. Honestly, I agree with you as well. I think this is another live dog spot. But again, not the one that you feel great about. Just because, it's one guy in Staropoli who's coming up to 185 pounds versus a guy in Roman Dolidze who started his pro career as a heavyweight, grappled professionally, or I shouldn't say professionally. Grappling's never really professional, I suppose. But grappled at 220 pounds, right? Starts his pro career as a heavyweight. Two first fights in the UFC are both at 205 pounds, beating Cody Saftic and his follow-up over John Allen. Like, he's fighting at 205. The fight with Trevin Giles is his middleweight debut. A lot of people were questioning, is he going to be able to drop the 20 pounds, come down from 205 to 85? And he looked awesome on the scales. Didn't look great in the fight, but made the weight. So now you got a big boy taking on a guy coming up 285 pounds. And like you mentioned, it's like, why is Staropoli coming down? Well, actually, Staropoli missed weight against Tim Means. He came in at 174.5. So You miss weight, you lose the fight, you take 10 months off, now you're coming up to 185 pounds for the first time. Like, there's a lot of question marks. When we talk about question marks, Muslim Salikhov took him down 3 times. That's a serious problem. Tim Means also takes him down 3 times. We got a problem on our hands. Now you're taking on Roman Dolidze, who's twice the size of both those guys, has a better wrestling game, has a better ground game, is a BJJ black belt. It figures to probably take you down. You're going to have a problem, right? But that's just at the surface, man. So I look back and Muslim Salikhov gets him down, but he can't hold him down because he doesn't have great top game. But Means can't hold him down either. Like, literally, he hits the ground and he pops right back up. Now, here's a guy that's never been finished in his entire... Or he got finished, I guess, his first pro loss in 2013. But since then, man, he's durable. He went the distance to Thiago Alves, who was a shell of himself. Went the distance to Muslim Salikhov, who's a known power puncher. Goes the distance to Tim Means, the dirty bird, quite the finisher. But, man, he took a shin right in the head from Tim Means and, like, hits the ground and just gets right back up and does not look hurt in the slightest bit. His cardio is pretty good. He keeps coming at you. Output could be a little bit better. Power could definitely be a lot better. He's not a finisher. I mean, he took Hector Aldana to a decision that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about his finishing abilities, but he's the kind of guy that is going to just outpoint you standing. If you take him down, he's going to get back up. He has not been submitted in his pro career. He's, chin seems to check out as far as I'm concerned. These 2 losses by decision are over good level of competition in Salikhov and Tim Means. That's all well and good, but he's, this entire 10 months he's been off, he's full-time with Charles Oliveira. So as far as a guy that you don't want to be on your back for a long period of time, Charles Oliveira. As long as a guy like whose striking has come a long way, whose ground game has come a long way, just like the ideal training partner to pose problems in pretty much every domain of the fight game, I really do think Staropoli could have made a lot of improvements. And he, when we talked about Claudio Puelles earlier, I don't think he put himself in the same spot, and he's still 25, and he's still got some proving to do. This kid's 28. Training with Charles is going to help him. But, dude, fighting Tim Means and Muslim Salikhov and Thiago Alves, those are legit. Those are legit fights. He's making those improvements. So how does he shake out versus Roman Dolidze? Well, Roman probably does take him down. But like you said, Roman's top game's not great. The top pressure's not great. His ability to suffocate a guy from a top position is not great. Because even if he had an excellent position, he'd abandon it for the idea of a submission. Now, this guy is in the room with Charles Oliveira. I'm sure he's working on a submission defense. And when you don't get the submission, you allow him to get back up. When he gets back up, he's going to be winning these striking exchanges, the same way that Trevin Giles did. And again, I hate always looking at the numbers. When you look at Dolidze's striking numbers, they're non-existent. They're not there. He'll throw a spinning back fist. He'll throw like one big, strong power technique, but he lands 32 strikes over the course of 15 versus Trevin Giles. He landed 51 over John Allen, and that was as good as it got for him, right? It's just too low of output for me. So when it's standing, Staropoli should be able to edge him out. When it's on the ground, it should not be for that long. Staropoli should be able to create space and get back up. But I don't want a ton of investment on this one because, again, we've got a welterweight taking on a light heavyweight. It just screams disaster. Plus, grapplers typically win these grappler versus striker matchups, and that's exactly what he's got. And if you're giving up takedowns to Muslim Salikhov, it's always a giant red flag. But when I look at the numbers, I think, you know what, as far as a dog play goes, I see Staropoli. As far as a prop goes, however, the fight goes the distance at minus 150, and the Staropoli by decision was plus 255. Mind you, Staropoli's not finishing anything. Again, do I got to talk about Hector Aldana again? So if he beats Dolidze, it'll be just like Giles did, just same way. And people online were crying robbery in the Giles fight, but it's like, he didn't do anything, like neither guy really did, but Dolidze deserved to lose. MMA decisions, they got it split 50-50 right down the middle. Like half of them thought Dolidze won because of the grappling, half of them thought the other side won because of the striking, Trevin Giles. So I got the same thing with Staropoli. As a decision prop at plus 255, I'm pretty confident this thing's going the distance. And if it's a close decision and the judges favor that little bit of striking, I'm holding a 255 decision prop ticket, which feels way better than what Dolidze is bringing. And last but not least, I think Clint brought it up, but it was like Dolidze's pre-fight quote. You shouldn't buy too much into pre-fight quotes, but it was like, are you looking to change your style based on, you have questions? And he's just like, no, this is how I fight. It's like, all right, buddy, I've heard enough. I've heard enough. Like, if you're not willing to admit there's a problem. Eric Nixick, meanwhile, is an excellent coach, and, but he can't get in there with you. And greasy theory, Eric Nixick hasn't been the same since he became Francis Ngannou's training partner. Because, man, holding mitts for that guy, God. You watch that Embedded episode? He, blocks the high kick, and then he's just like, And it's like, dude, you okay? And he's like, oh, that's why we get hazard pay. It's like, I can assure you, long term, this is not going to be good, man. But all the same, yeah, he has put himself in a good position in Extreme Couture. But yeah, if he wants to be exciting and he wants to go for these drop down for a heel hooks, I can't get behind that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm interested to see how he actually pans out the more and longer the Dolidze actually sticks at Extreme Couture. But again, from what we've seen recently, I'm not a big fan of what we've been seeing. All right, let's move on to the co-main event here. Again, this is a 14-fight card that we got coming right at you tomorrow. Hopefully nothing falls off in the next 24 or 48 hours. But we got Marcin Tybura going up against Walt Harris, minus 175 on Marcin Tybura, who's streaking right now on a 4-fight winning streak, and Walt Harris plus 155, who's on the opposite end on a 2-fight losing streak. I'd like me some Walt Harris here. Or sorry, I'd like me some Marcin Tybura here. I think Walt Harris falls into that category at this point in time of the Jairzinho Rozenstruiks, the Francis Ngannous, and the Derek Lewis's, which is either knock you out or they're probably getting outworked and beaten either later in the fight or by decision. I think that Marcin Tybura, all he has to worry about is getting knocked out in the first round here. If he doesn't get knocked out, I see this looking like the last two fights for Walt Harris. And albeit, Marcin Tybura is not Alexander Volkov. He's not Alistair Overeem, but he has been showing some good wrinkles in his game over this 4-fight winning streak that he's currently on, right? He strikes for like a half a round and then he goes for a takedown at the latter half and then really starts to pummel his opponents. We really saw that on display against Maxime Grishin, against Ben Rothwell as well, too. That's a fight where I was actually betting Ben Rothwell because I thought Ben Rothwell had the power to knock out Marcin Tybura, and he landed some good shots on Tybura. Tybura kept chugging along and he kept coming forward and then eventually started out-voluming Rothwell after dropping that first round, and then obviously having a lot of success in the next 2 rounds. Again, I truly think that Walt Harris is KO or bust. We saw so many sides of him, right? And every time I bring this up, people bring up the Andrei Arlovski fight. That was a close fight. He actually got outstruck by 20 strikes in that fight, yet still ended up winning that fight somehow. And not to mention, that fight's a no contest now. Dude popped for steroids that fight. And since then, can't go past the second round anymore. Right, albeit he's finishing Sergey Spivak and Alexei Oleinik in the first minute of their fights, and then Alexander Volkov and Alistair Overeem, obviously much better fighters than him. But I think that Marcin Tybura fits that mold of guys that are going to be able to go out there and stay away from his big shots. I feel like he's distanced himself a little bit from his knockout losses to Shamil Abdurakhimov and
Augusto Sakai.
Yeah, Augusto Sakai. I feel like he's distanced himself enough from those to go out there and show that he has decent durability. He's rolling with the shots now. He's taking some good shots. He's shown that he can keep chugging forward. And I think that once Walt Harris sees that he's not going out, we'll see Marcin Tybura start to land those takedowns and start getting some ground and pound going. And I think he probably finishes this probably in the second or third round. Last thing I'll say about Walt Harris, changing his training camp once again. Used to be at ATT, then started doing his stuff in Alabama, I think is where he's from. And now he's up there in Extreme Couture. You see a bunch of pictures with him, and he's staying at Francis Ngannou's house, if I'm not mistaken. And he's trained with Roman Dolidze and trained close with Eric Nixick. But at this point in time, the guy's 37 years old. How much changes is he going to be able to make? It seems like it's cardio is the thing that is the issue, right? It's only so long you can go out there and just knock guys out and think that, okay, if I don't knock a guy out, how am I going to win this fight? He was able to do it against Andrei Arlovski. But again, that was a very questionable fight, not to mention everything that happened afterwards with the steroids and stuff. So I think Marcin mixes this up pretty well. I think he takes him down probably the ending of this first round, and that should probably start to be the beginning of the end. And I think he probably finishes him in the second or third round here, where Walt really starts to huff and puff. The funniest thing that I really found was Walt Harris staring up at the screen to look at the clock 20 seconds into a second round against Alexander Volkov. Like, dog, the round just started. You got so much more to go. So that's just not a good sign for me. And he came in great shape in that fight, right? Remember, we saw a huge difference between what he had in the Overeem fight, obviously coming fresh off that tragic story with his stepdaughter. And then he came in shape, hella good shape against Alexander Volkov, and that still didn't make a difference. So I will pass this off to you while I go drain the main vein, because my bladder wants to explode right now, and I cannot sit through these next 20 to 30 minutes that we're about to do. So yeah, I'm going Tybura. The props, Tybura inside the distance. Tybura round 2 and round 3. Those are the ones that I'm going to be circling here. So Tybura round 2 plus 600 and Tybura round 3 plus 1,000. I'm hitting both those because I think he finishes this fight. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I honestly think Tybura should be the pick as well, but we got middling heavyweights in the sense that but either guy could win. Walt Harris is a one-round or bust guy. He's either going to come out there in that first round, get that knockout victory. If he doesn't get the knockout, then yeah, you mentioned his cardio falls off a cliff massively. And one, he's a heavyweight. They're not known for their cardio. Two, he's now 37 years old. It's just he's never been a cardio guy to begin with. He's a college football or a basketball player, sorry. He's a great athlete, but he's a great moving that well as a heavyweight, that explosive, fast twitch muscle. It's just tiring. Again, he's got huge power, but he's not able to sustain it. Once he had all that personal tragedy, the UFC took the man and paraded him to sell fights. It was a sad sight. It was sad because obviously everything that happened to him, but also that they were looking to take advantage. And they gave him a fight where there's Alistair Overeem, which is not a very good fight to be taken when you're not fully in the zone. Comes in out of shape, like you said, didn't look good on the scales, loses the fight. Started great. Started just like Walt Harris does. Hurts Overeem. First 3 minutes, he's looking good. The last 2 minutes of the round, he gets taken down and he can't do anything. He gasses out. He gives it up. It's over for him. They don't give him any type of favor bringing him back after the Overeem fight and booking him against Alexander Volkov, a former Bellator champion, a guy that's 6'7", a guy that's top 5 in your division. No favors done there. He does show up in very good shape, but it doesn't make a difference. And again, he's not getting any younger. He was at American Top Team, best gym in the world. Leaves ATT, goes to Alabama. I actually think he spent some time in North Carolina with Brunson and those guys for a little bit as well. And then now settling on Extreme Couture. Like, where is he most comfortable? I don't know. Is he able to recapture that magic? I don't know. But there's no doubt he is still dangerous. He still doesn't have heavy hands. For the first 3 minutes of the fight, he still is capable of knocking guys out. And with Marcin Tybura, looks good right now. He's on a nice little winning streak right now. But there was a time not so long ago, late 2019, where it was like he appeared to be chinny. You mentioned the Shabnullah Rakimov fight. You mentioned the Augusto Sakai fight, the Derek Lewis fight. He loses 3 fights in a row where he's getting knocked out in all of them. I mean, he goes 1-3 over the course of 4 fights, but gets knocked out in those 3 losses. That's all not good stuff. Now he's on a resurgence. He's getting better. He's, like you said, he's put those knockout losses in the rearview mirror. Sergey Spivak is a grappler, a Ukrainian grappler, not known for striking it in the slightest bit. No threat of the knockout there. Maxim Grishin is coming up from 205 pounds, is not a heavyweight, also has relatively seemingly no power at this level, not a threat of a knockout. Ben Rothwell's very old at this stage in his career, very plodding. The fight was mostly in the clinch for the most part. Not exactly that threat of the knockout. Greg Hardy, now it's like, boom, you got that power puncher. And at the times, I had Tybura, I bet Tybura in that fight. At the time, it was like, I remember being a huge sweat. But watching it back, his chin wasn't that bad. Like, he took the punches. He took all of them. There was quite a few of them. But he took them, and he kept rolling with it. And that's what I'm going to need here, because Walt Harris is going to hit him. Walt Harris could hurt him. But he needs to just be able to survive that first 3, maybe 4 minutes, and then he should be able to take this fight over. One thing you notice in the Overeem fight is Walt has a good start and does a little bit of good, ties out 3 minutes in. The Volkov fight, like you mentioned, he's looking at the clock. And I kept thinking, why does he keep looking at the clock? But it's the body kick. It's that Volkov keeps working that front teep to the body. Yes, that's the same technique that finishes him early in the second. But you see right away it's hitting him, and you see Walt just start to tire. And Walt doesn't want to let his hands go. The body work's paying dividends. So you rewatch Marcin Tybura, and it's not the straight teep to the body, but look at Tybura versus Greg Hardy. And look at the body work Tybura's putting in. Tons of kicks to the body. And even when Greg Hardy's teeing off on him, about 3.5 minutes in that first round, Hardy is gassed. He's huffing and puffing. Sure, he's got bad cardio. Sure, he's got asthma. But part of it's also like Tybura was using the body kicks. As soon as he gets hit, he has to, relax because he needs to defend himself now and not worry about kicks to the body. But he was putting in good work. I think this fight plays out pretty similar. He comes out, Walt Harris maybe lands a couple shots. Tybura softens up the body. If Walt's going to win, he's going to knock him out in the first. If Tybura survives that first, he's going to probably score a takedown in the second round against Walt, take him out. The gift here of a line, because we're talking about props, I didn't actually believe it when I first saw it, is the under 2.5 is minus 125. That seems like a no-brainer. If Walt wins this thing, he's finishing it in under 2.5 by knockout against a Tybura who may have a suspect chin. If Tybura wins this fight, he's not just looking to grind Walt Harris. He's looking to finish Walt Harris. Walt Harris himself is actually the greatest under 2.5 bet ever. He cashed the under 2.5 against Volkov. He was 30 seconds off against he cashed it against Overeem. He cashed it against Olenek, Sergey Spivak, Daniel Speets, Mark Godbeard, Fabricio Verdum, Cyril Asker, Chase Sherman, Cody East. The only 2 times was Andrei Arlovsky and Shamil Abdurakhimov. all he does is cash under 2.5s, right? And with Tybura, you just saw the same thing in the Greg Hardy fight. If you were a one-round fighter, he is going to take advantage. He's going to tire you out. He's going to take over. I think that's what's going to happen here. And if Walt springs the upset, which it's an MMA fight, certainly possible, I'm still covered on that under 2.5. But the official pick will be Tybura. I also saw, what was it? The Tybura by TKO plus 265. Is that not tempting? Like,
kind of, yeah.
Similar to the Greg Hardy situation, as soon as he got him down and Hardy's tired and has nowhere to go, the ground and pound just adds up to the ref just has mercy eventually. So look back at Overeem versus Walt Harris, right? He just flattens him out and Walt just accepts it. He does not know what to do. He has no way of getting out. He just shells up and allows for the ref to mercifully stop it. It's a similar stoppage, right? Volkov finishes him with a body kick standing. That's fine. Tybura could finish him with the body kick standing, or you could drag him to the ground just like he did to Greg Hardy and take advantage. So that's the path I'm going for. And you know when it was like Tybura looked like he was shot, lost to Sakai, who's now headlining a card, lost to Abdurakhimov, and he lost to Derek Lewis, who's now fighting for a world title. Like, even when he was looking suspect with them, his run coincides with Jan Blachwitz's run. Like, he lost his last fight, and now he's gone. He went 4-0 in 2020. Like, talk about a hell of a 2020. Might be fighter of the year for 2020 in terms of a resurgence. Comeback. We'll give him comeback fighter of the year. Not winning fighter of the year for that, but still a 4-0 run in 2020. It's like Tybura at heavyweight, you mature a little bit later. He's got great kicks. Even that Victor Pesta head kick from back in the day, which I still sleep at night. Watch out, Victor Pesta! Like, holy shit, man, that came out of nowhere. But like, he is talented, he has good striking, and he's relying a lot more on that grappling now. He's coming together, and just like Jan, he's primed to make one last run late in his career. Worked for Jan. Hopefully Tybura is probably only a fight or two away from a potential title shot. And I think he gets the win over Walt Harris here. And last thing is, shame on you, UFC. Walt Harris, personal tragedy. Sorry, bud. Fight Alistair Overeem. Oh, shit. I didn't know that didn't go good for you. Why don't you fight Alexander Volkov? Oh, man. You know what? Lesson learned. Chase Sherman, no, he's available. But how's about you go out there and take on Marcin Tybura? Streaking. Just beat Greg Hardy. I don't know, dude. He's got a 75 base. Is that worth screwing a guy over for $150,000? Like, come on. Throw him a bone. No bone here. I got to go with Tybura.
The matchup that I've always wanted to see is actually Greg Hardy versus Walt Harris. And that's a poll that I actually put up on Twitter earlier this week, and it seemed about 60% of the people said they would bet on Walt Harris. And I expected that, which would lead me to believe that Greg Hardy would probably be the underdog there. And I take the shot on Greg Hardy as the underdog. I'm assuming that you would too. Give me a quick thoughts on that fight. Do you think Walt Harris or Greg Hardy would win that fight?
Yeah, I'm going to say Greg Hardy. With Walt Harris, if you look at the last number 4-5 fights, he's got that one round, he comes out there, he knocks you out. If not, with Greg Hardy, undeniably, he is making improvements, right? What he looked against Tybura was by far the best he's ever looked, and then he got tired. Yeah. Dude, look, Walt Harris is staring up at the clock 30 seconds into a fight with Alexander Volkov, and Greg Hardy went the distance with him. Like, Greg Hardy he's 6'5" with an 83-inch reach, a physical athletic specimen, has no gas tank. Walt Harris is half the athlete, a slightly better power puncher in my opinion, has more experience, but if it was the case of two guys that mirror image each other and they were both going to get tired. But the last thing there is that Walt has more heart, like the Overeem fight, he could have been done at the end of the first. He hurt Overeem bad in the first, and by the end of the first, he himself is done. But he perseveres a little bit. In the second round, he's in a bad spot, but he holds it together. Greg Hardy, when Greg Hardy gets tired, there's one of two things. Either it looks like he quits, or he just smashes Alan Crowder in the face with an illegal knee so that he can get DQ'd and go home. Like, like, he doesn't seem to want to be in there. The difference is Walt's been fighting for 10 plus years. He's got 15 fights in the UFC, and Greg Hardy's is got like a handful of pro fights. Not that this matters, but thanks for just bringing it out. I don't know why I just thought about this right now, but we can move on. Is that Walt Harris, this is crazy. It triggered my mind when I said he's got 15 pro fights. In 15 pro UFC fights, the most he's ever landed in a fight was 33. 33 significant strikes landed was the most he's ever landed in a UFC fight, and he's fought 15 times in the octagon. And that time he landed 33 significant strikes was in 2016. It was 5 years ago. So he really does embody he's either going to knock you out or he's just going to get tired and die off. There's no output. He's got a dozen good power shots, and that's it for him. Whereas like Greg Hardy, I'd like to think that maybe there's a tad bit more there. But I'll tell you what, dude, book that fight. Book that fight for sure.
Right? It seems I believe Harris is going to lose this weekend. And if he does, you got both guys coming off losses. Might as well throw them together, throw Harris a little bit of a bone. And if he can't beat Greg Hardy, might be time to hang it up, brother. I'm sorry to say so. All right, let's move on to the main event here. We got more heavyweights coming right at you. We got Jairzinho Rozenstruik going up against Augusto Sakai. Line has been pretty much just been hovering around that pick'em line. Right now, we got plus 100 on Augusto and minus 120 on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Interesting fight, right? You got, again, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who falls into the category of Walt Harris and Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, who I believe guys that are pretty much KO or bust. Now, earlier in the week when I dropped my podcast, I'm like, Alistair Overeem out-volumed Jairzinho Rozenstruik en route to eventually losing at the last second of the fight. 2 judges had him up 4 rounds. 1 judge had him up 3 rounds. But somebody actually corrected me. Jairzinho Rozenstruik was actually the one that outstruck Alistair Overeem in that fight. And that was to my surprise. I was like, wait a second. I thought Overeem looked a little bit more busy, but Rozenstruik was throwing his shots out there, but he seems very ineffective with his volume and with his output. Right, it's all there just to set up his big shot, and if his big shot doesn't come, he's kind of fucked. Overeem did some good things in terms of clinching him up against the cage, getting some control time. I believe he landed a couple of takedowns early in the fight as well, and that obviously outweighs everything that Jairzinho was doing in that fight. I think Sakai can do the same thing here. I think that Sakai has shown some solid improvements. Obviously, last time around, he gets ground and pounded by Alistair Overeem, but that was his first ever fight, 5-round fight in the UFC, right? That's an experience type of fight for Sakai. He had a great, solid first 3 rounds. I thought he won the first 3 rounds, and then it seemed like the cardio issues start to set in. Overeem starts landing takedowns pretty much at will. Obviously, we know once you're grappling in fights, that takes way more out of your tank than just going out there and striking for 25 minutes, and then he eventually gets finished at the beginning of the 5th round. I believe he takes that experience, puts it in his back pocket, and brings it into this fight and shows that, okay, I know what it's like to go 20, at least to get to the 5th round, and now I know what I need to do to get to the 5th round. Here's a fight where I'm not going to have to worry about, getting grapple fucked or anything like that. I don't have to worry about Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking me down. So let me just try to push this guy up against the cage for the first, 10, 15 minutes of the fight. Let's try to get some control time. Let's win some rounds, and then just try to play it safe for the rest of it, where I still have my gas tank intact enough that I should be able to stay away from the big strikes of Jairzinho. I fully expect this fight to be just as boring as the Ciryl Gane fight. And it's not on Ciryl Gane. It's not on Augusto Sakai. It's the fact that they're trying to stay safe and stay away from the big power of a guy that can put guys out with jabs like Jairzinho Rozenstruik has done in the past, right? He has some heavy power in his hands. One little slip up from Augusto Sakai or Ciryl Gane, and they lose half their pay. They lose their win streak, or they for Augusto Sakai, he loses his opportunity to bounce back from his first loss in the UFC. So you got to play it as safe as possible, and I think that's exactly what Sakai's going to do here. I feel like he has way more tools to win this fight. Technically speaking, he may not be the better striker here, but MMA wise, I feel like he can do good enough things in terms of nullifying the power that's going to be coming his way from Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Again, I don't like betting on guys that have that one path to victory, which is if I find that left or right hand, you're going to sleep. Did you happen to see The Ultimate Fighter a couple days ago? Did you watch it?
Yeah. Alaska FC living it up again.
Exactly, right? What's the whole thing that they're doing for the training camp? If I land this right hand, this guy's going to sleep, and then the other guy's like just a high level wrestler from fucking college and all that type of shit. That's all the shit. But if we're setting odds on this fight, it's probably minus 600 for fucking Andre, whatever the fuck his last name is. That's what I'm talking about here, right? You got Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who, if he lands his power, that's how he wins this fight. I don't like betting on guys like that. And again, I kind of slightly giggle at people that take the straight money line on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I think his path to victory is knockout. Why leave money on the table where I don't see this fight going the full 5 rounds if Rozenstruik actually wins? And here's a thought as well. If you want to take Rozenstruik, if you're taking Augusto Sakai, and there is a possibility that Sakai starts to slow down later in this fight, sprinkle that round 4, round 5 Rozenstruik. Who knows? It could come to fruition, right? Sakai, if he makes a mistake, is probably going to come when he's tired later in this fight. Rozenstruik, we've seen, can knock out anybody up until the last second of a fight. Could come through. I ultimately do think Sakai outvolumes him. I think he, out MMAs him here pretty much. Clinch work up against the cage, maybe some takedowns, staying away from the big power. I think Sakai wins this fight pretty handily, and I'm kind of surprised he still is sitting as a very slight underdog. In terms of the Rozenstruik round 4 plus 1900, Rozenstruik round 5 plus 2700. Again, just little sprinkles, especially if you're heavily invested in Sakai in this spot. But I do think that Sakai wins this fight, and I think he wins it by decision. So the line that we're getting for Sakai by decision plus 380, absolutely beautiful line. I think this fight accumulates rounds. So I know you like this style. I believe that you're on the overs here as well. But over 1.5 minus 190, love that. Over 2.5 minus 105, love that. I'd probably go just up to over 3.5. Plus 140 over 3.5, I like that as well. I'm pretty certain you're on that as well. So I'll hand it on over to you. I got Sakai via decision plus 390. How do you see this one?
I see Sam 97 scrapping with some of the guys in the comment section, but this Rozenstruik, that's fucking gold, man. I gotta admit, that's gold. That's what he does. He's got the death card, sure, but he's frozen. He is Rozenstruik. He just sits there and stares at you for far too long. That's the problem. Does he have power? No doubt about it. But this goes on to a bunch of his fights. It's not just the Ciryl Gane fight. It's not just, the Alistair Overeem fight where he just takes so long to get going. It's even the Junior Dos Santos fight. 2 of the 3 judges had Junior Dos Santos winning that first round. By the numbers, Junior Dos Santos outpoints him in that first round. And when you rewatch the tape on it, Rozenstruik just stares at him. In the second round, he hits him and puts him down, but he takes too far long to get going. The Overeem fight, he takes 3 rounds before he realizes, I should start fighting this man. Junior, again, takes time. The Ciryl Gane, the entire time, he just stares at him. Yeah, do you want to bet behind that? No, you can't fully get behind that. Sakai, meanwhile, he's got the output. He's, for a guy that doesn't physically look like he's in any kind of shape, he's mobile, he's a decent enough athlete for a heavyweight. His problem is that he doesn't look like he could fight 5 rounds, and then in the Overeem fight, well, he proves that to be correct. He can't fight 5 rounds. By the time that 3rd round ended, he was cooked. Anybody that was in there with him that was a little bit fresher was going to take him away, and sure enough, those takedowns that Overeem's using on him are just basic 101. He's just too tired. He allows himself to get TKO'd. If Rozenstruik wins this fight, that's how you get the job done. You got to take him into the 4th and 5th. You're looking at those 4th and 5th round TKO props for Rozenstruik. It makes sense because in the first 3 rounds, he might not let his hands go. But if Sakai's cardio is still no good and he gets tired, then that's the time it's going to take place. But Sakai's only 30. That's still young as far as the heavyweight goes. He's at American Top Team. That was his first time fighting a 5-round fight, and he was up 3 rounds against Alistair Overeem, incredible opponent. If you go back to the drawing board, you can improve the cardio. You've been in that big spot. You just got to shore that up a bit. I could see him coming out as a slightly better version this time around and not fatiguing after 3 and being able to hold on. But, it is a risky enough proposition. I got Sakai. Sakai's the pick. It's another dog pick. And I think that, at plus 110, it's a dog or pass for main event. I got him. I think he's going to outwork him for those first few rounds. And I'm hoping he doesn't fade and get tired late. The issue is, Paul Shaughnessy mentioned this. I hadn't really thought about it too much until he mentioned it. But with Rozenstruik, right, I keep mentioning he's tentative. Ciryl Gane is 6'4" with an 81-inch reach, right? You've got Francis Ngannou is 6'4" with a 82-inch reach, 83-inch reach. And you've got Alistair Overeem, who's 6'5" with an 82-inch reach. These guys are all giants with very long reaches. And so Rozenstruik pulls his punches a little bit. Whenever he fights a guy that's his size or a guy that has a comparable reach to him, those shots land. And when he lands his shots, they put you away. When he's taking on these guys with 81, 82, 83-inch reaches, he seems to just be on the outside of it just a tad. So with Sakai is, 6'4", or 6'2", I believe, 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. Rozenstruik is probably going to put hands on him. And what we've seen with Rozenstruik is if he's going to hit you, those aren't the fights he loses. The fights where he does it, he's just out of range the entire time and stares at you. Those are the fights he's losing. What version do you against Sakai? I don't know. But he's 33 years old. He realizes probably that, it was an embarrassing fight the last time out. No idea how he gets another headlining fight out of it. He's got to fight. He's got to go out there and let his hands go. And if he was to do that, then theoretically he could be successful. Now, the Overeem fight, he goes 5 rounds. And the Ciryl Gane fight, he goes 5 rounds. So this is another 5-round booking for him. He's been there. Whereas Sakai only been there once and failed miserably. So, yeah, interesting. I think the way I'm attacking it is the plus 110 Sakai, sure, I'll take it. The over 3.5 rounds, the over 3 rounds, if your book offers you a fight starts round 4, all that range, I like it. I think this is a heavyweight fight that's banking some rounds in it. But I will keep my eye on the live betting opportunity, whereas Sakai, very similar to the Alistair Overeem fight, could go up 3 rounds. And if you see Tubby sitting on his corner, on his stool between rounds, dry heaving, now's the time to live bet Rozenstruik because even one single round of 5 minutes with this guy in front of you is a difficult proposition. Cyril Guy never got tired, right? He was able to backpedal the entire time. Overeem, the second he started to get tired, face blew up, lip split, walk-off KO. I still think it was an early stoppage personally, but that's only because I bet Alistair Overeem. What can you do?
If you didn't walk away, they probably don't stop that fight. If you followed up with follow-up punches, they probably would have let it go a little bit more, and that probably would have seen the last bell.
Yeah, I know, and everyone was like, well, dude, the lip. It's like there's 4 seconds left. The ref wouldn't have even noticed the lip.
Exactly.
Right? He would have seen Overeem hit the ground, and he saw Overeem get back up. And even though he was on wobbly legs, he was still got back up, so...
They let Robbie Lawler fight an entire round with the busted lip. You're telling me they're going to stop the fight because the busted lip with 4 seconds left? Fuck off.
4 seconds, so. I know. And again, I had Overeem, and personally, I had Rose. I had it 2-2 going into the 5th, so I had Rozenstruik winning that fight regardless.
Interesting.
But the judges did not agree, and online did not agree. And even when I tape study it, the reason why that guy pointed out, he's like, actually Rozenstruik outstruck him. Overeem doesn't do shit in that fight, man.
Yeah, it's just control.
The first round he takes him down, and he looks really good in the first round. But then the second and the third round, the takedowns aren't there anymore. He's too tired. He doesn't want to pursue them because he doesn't want to gas himself out. So now just nothing happens. And Rozenstruik's cool with that nothing happens type of pace. But eventually he's got to let his hands go. And with Sakai's... He's got power, but I don't think he's knocking out Rose. I don't know. Fuck, it's heavyweights, dude. This is what I'm going to leave you with. We'll get to our best picks right now. This is what I'm going to leave you with. There's 14 fights on this card. Yeah, we want action on the main event, but there's so many better spots, to be honest with you.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with you. 14 fights, plenty of opportunities. Don't just, figure out whether you want to bet on Tom Breese or not, because there's other better big favorites that should probably cash for you and are way more trustworthy than Tom Breese. All right, that brings us to our 3 best prop bets. I do want to remind you guys on the back end here, please do hit that like, hit that subscribe. My goal is always to hit at least 100 likes on the video. We're currently at 87. I'm sure one of you 162 people watching right now could hit that like, and we can notch that 100 like mark here. All right, let's bring on the screen here so that we can get things going. I do actually want to announce the Ultimate Weigh-In Show cast for tomorrow. We got a pretty good show. We got my guy Aaron Waters Show, aka at Top Kaiki on Twitter. We also got CJ's wingman. We got Paul Shaughnessy coming on tomorrow night. I got the best picture I could find of him pouring a Canadian into a show right there. I love it. He's making his debut on the show tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that. Never done anything with him, but we've DM'd a lot in the past, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And then lastly, we got a very sharp guy. We got my guy Liam Picks Fights. Very sharp dude, very active on the jiu-jitsu scene right now. The guy knows exactly what the fuck he's talking about, and he's very enthusiastic as well, so I can't wait to have him on the show to break it down. Special start time tomorrow. I'll be going away for the weekend with the wife. It's our wedding anniversary, so we got ourselves a nice little cottage that we can disappear to for the get off the grid for the next 4 days. So tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be in the afternoon, nice and early for you West Coasters, but 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, me, Paul Shaughnessy, Aaron Waters Show, and my guy Liam. Make sure you guys join us tomorrow once again, 3 p.m. Eastern. I can't wait to get into it with you guys.
You should have photoshopped a beer in Liam's hand, because it seems like he's out of place with these other two, right? And what is that? Is that a truly extra? What is that? Is that even a beer?
I believe it's a seltzer or some shit. These guys have
Paul likes seltzer too.
Yeah,
I know. Started on that.
Well, I actually asked Paul, I'm like, who would you like to have on the show with you? And he actually suggested Aaron Waters Show because they have a love for seltzers. So they're they're gonna pound seltzers on the show. I'm like, all right. I wish I could join you guys, but I have a 3.5 hour road trip ahead of me after. So I ain't trying to get a DUI while I'm trying to go to a fucking cottage. But yeah, great show. Seltzers will be had. Should be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys join us once again tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's move things along to our 3 best bets. Didn't want to give you guys a seizure right there. All right, first fight up, I got Trinaldo via decision plus 385. I think there's a lot of value there. I expect the fight to go the full 15 minutes. I don't think either guy is going to get a finisher. But I do think that Trinaldo is the value side here, even as a straight pick at plus 200-ish. I think he's the side here. It's going to be a very slow-paced fight. It's going to be a low-volume fight, and I'd rather be holding that plus 200 ticket rather than a minus 250 ticket on Mr. Muslim Salikhov. So one of my favorite parlay props, one of my favorite props is Trinaldo via decision at plus 385. Secondly, Ontario De La Rosa via decision plus 115. It's the one that I feel safest about in that fight. I think De La Rosa wins that fight regardless. I could see the potential of a ground and pound, which I actually looked at while we were breaking that down. Plus, close to plus 1100 for De La Rosa to win by KO, which is not too bad considering she could possibly get a TKO finish similar to Antonia Shevchenko from Lipski's last fight. But I'll go with decision at plus 115 because I believe she'll just go out there and grind her out. And then lastly, y'all know I had to go with those round 2 or round 3 picks if I found a spot. And I definitely found one here with Tybura. I'm going Tybura round 2 plus 600 or Tybura round 3 plus 1,000. It's a no-brainer. If you've seen Walt Harris's past couple fights, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Tybura just needs to, focus on that batting nest and early, get away from the big strikes from Walt Harris early, and he should be able to put him away in the second or third round. Hopefully, we can catch one of those round props right there. All right, Cody, you are up, my brother.
Yeah, dude, I'm surprised it's plus 600 in that Tybura round 2 because, that's how Walt likes to give it up. Usually round 2. I went Amirkhani, Kirk, the over 1.5, minus 160. That would be also interchangeable with Leavitt versus Puelles, over 1.5. They're both 160. I like both of them. But yeah, truthfully, Amirkhani likes to search for the neck. Kirk, BJJ black belt, never been submitted in his pro career. Don't think he's getting submitted here. He's going to come in good shape. Everyone says short notice, fought 3 weeks ago, looked good, got the skill. We're getting over 1.5, the bare minimum. And if he does spring the upset, we're hoping he springs this upset, he's not finishing Amirkhani. So this 1.5 to me looks really good. Minus 160. I know it's not the juicy plus money that your boy MMA Lock gives you. But you know how I gotta start building up the bankroll a little bit so we can take some bigger shots. Here's a bigger shot, plus 135. We're going to go Sean Woodson via decision. Again, he's a decision guy. He is 6'2", 78-inch reach, big guy for 145 pounds, but not exactly the biggest power guy going. I think in this spot, he's going to be able to largely to keep the fight standing against Yusuf Zalal. If Zalal does manage to get him down, Woodson's just going to get back up. Terrence McKinney on the Contender Series, much better wrestler, much better athlete all around. And you really see where Woodson does get taken down multiple times in the first round. Always works his way back up. Being with James Krause, Glory MMA and Fitness, plethora of good grinding type training partners in the gym. I do think that Woodson's going to come along pretty nicely here. And again, I think that he just wins the striking exchanges, does the exact same thing that Suwo Choi did, and secures himself a decision victory, plus 135. And then I got to take a little bit of a shot here. So plus 140. Oh, that's right. I actually this close to putting that Trinaldo via decision, plus 385. But to me, that's like a punt. And I want to give you something I think is going to hit. So I cowered it out a little bit. But we went with Rozenstruik Sakai over 3.5 plus 140. I would much prefer the fight starts round 3 or the fight starts round 4 than fighting a 3.5. But again, I don't want to give you something that's not readily available on everybody's lines, where 3.5 is going to be. With Rozenstruik, even though he has that power, he's just so tentative. We're going to bank some rounds. And with Sakai, he does have a little bit, I shouldn't say a little bit less, a lot less power, has the volume. But when you respect somebody like Rozenstruik, it causes you to get a little bit trigger shy. Plus, he gassed out his last time out, so he's not going to want to push himself that much. Plus, he realizes, I honestly think that they'll both go in with a game plan of field the other man out, not just try to finish this thing as quick as possible, and it should bank some rounds. Sakai's also really durable. Rozenstruik, Francis Ngannou knocked him out. Has anybody else done anything to him? No, they both have durability. We should be able to bank in some rounds, I think, here.
All right, there you have it. Our 3 best prop bets for this weekend's UFC Vegas 28 card. Make sure you guys jot that shit down because I think we're going to have a pretty good weekend. All right, Cody, on the flip side here, as always, I like to give you the platform, say what you want, and then I will wrap this thing up.
Yeah, as always, you can catch me on Twitter at CJ Saftic. I also launched a YouTube channel recently, so CJ MMA on YouTube. Check it out. I think next week we've got a Bellator. We've got PFLs coming back into the second stage of their season. We've got obviously a bunch of other stuff coming up. And yeah, Sunday I've got my best friend's 30th birthday is on Saturday, so I'll be a mess on Sunday. But the video will come out. It's all about consistency. The recap will be out at some point. But I will be banged up. So we'll see. And live tweets might half make sense and half might not make sense. We'll see how the night progresses. But yeah, pumped up. And then, just keeping busy, keeping going. And yeah, we're finally happy to be back. We had 1 week off. Felt like an eternity. I know your tweet said the same thing. That's how I felt. When I seen you tweet it, I was like, shit, we felt the same way. It felt like a month. So
Absolutely.
Even though we've been talking for fucking almost 3 hours now, I've had a pleasure, man. It's been a good show.
Exactly. I'm surprised that you mentioned Bellator and PFL next week, but not even the big UFC 263 pay-per-view that we got next week in Brandon Moreno going up against Davison Figueiredo for the second time. And then obviously Israel Adesanya going up against the second time again against Marvin Vettori as well. So solid card there that we'll be breaking down for you guys next Thursday. But tomorrow, like I said, Ultimate Weigh-In Show, Paul Shaughnessy, aka the other half of the Dogger Pass podcast, is going to be on the Ultimate Weigh-In Show tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you guys check that out. Obviously, Aaron Waters Show is going to be on it as well as my guy Liam Picks Fights. If you're looking for Cody's YouTube channel, link is in my description below. So make sure you guys go out there. You guys don't have to search anything. Just click that bad boy and then click subscribe, and you'll get all that juicy content from my guy, Cody Saftic. So make sure you guys check that out. Obviously, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe on this video as well. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Easily the longest show that we've ever done in the history of this show. But it was nice to do it after a long little layoff for us. But yeah, good luck on your bets this weekend, fellas. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. But me and Cody will see you guys next Thursday once again, breaking down UFC 263, 8 p.m. Eastern, Thursday night. Good luck on your bets this weekend, guys. See you then.